Welcome to spring college football on the SEC Network. It's time for the maroon and white game here in College Station, Texas, as we say hello from Kyle Field on the campus of Texas A&M. So glad to have you here with us today as the Aggies get to show their best with spring practice now behind them. Hello, everybody. Mike Cousins, Greg McElroy, Cole Kubelik joins us from the sideline tonight as well. A great season in year number one for Jimbo Fisher. The expectations only get higher. Hard to imagine after a 9-win season. But what they've got going for them on offense is that Kellen Mond is back for year number 3, and he's the uncontested guy, number 1 at quarterback.
Yeah, and he did a great job last year of really taking what was a very tough quarterback competition, using some of that momentum that he created, having won the competition, and came out of the gates very strong. First half of the season really played well. A little bit of a rut there in October, but he finished on such a high note with an impressive performance against both LSU in that 7 overtime game and, of course, against NC State in the bowl game. He is the big reason why I think people are optimistic about what the Aggies might look like in 2019. Jimbo Fisher, one of the best quarterback coaches in the country, so expect him to reach his potential under his leadership.
Help them close out the season winning their final 4 games. Their defense was very strong last year, 3rd in the country against the run, under 100 yards a game allowed, but they've got a lot of new faces coming in this year.
They made tremendous growth in year one under Mike Elko, the defensive coordinator. They really were good against the run, like you alluded to, because their front 4 was so dang good. But all those guys, for the most part, are gone. However, they feel good about their defensive line. Just have to evaluate a couple leaders at the second level and improve on what was a very leaky pass defense in the secondary.
Cole Kubelik down on the field with Jimbo Fisher.
Coach Fisher, now you're going to turn over play calling tonight. So how will you watch this game as opposed to if you were actually calling the game?
Well, I'm trying not to get in the scheme and just watch the actual plays that are called and see the execution and make sure we're operating status quo, substitutions, assignments, making our hats on a hat or on defense, not blowing assignments.
This time a year ago, we're talking to you about how Kellen Mond, what he had to do to win the job.
Yeah.
How is it different for a quarterback to be able to progress when you're not necessarily fighting to be the starter?
You know, I think it's a challenge to you personally to make sure you stay with the same hunger. You know, you can't never be content in what you want to do, and the job is to win a championship, so you got to take your game and fine-tune it in so many more details. And now that he has the knowledge of our offense, that's what I'm looking for.
This is the last practice for you guys. How have you felt about spring up to this point?
I've been good from this standpoint. I think we've competed very well. I thought we've been very physical. I thought the practice have been very competitive, and I think the guys have went back and forth in that regard. So we're getting better there. We got to keep impressed on the skill level, but we lost some guys, which our timing, I think it affected a little bit. But I like spring. From the toughness part of it, and the big thing to me, identifying who can play and who you feel comfortable with.
Now, Damian Craig's calling one side of this. He said, I'm throwing it until Jimbo makes me stop. Are you going to go make him stop?
You played with him. You know what he's going to do. I told him. Jay, they're calling it. Thank you.
And it'll be a difficult slate for this team. Texas State, the opener, and then on the road against Clemson, and they'll see a bunch of top 10 opponents next year. So repeating 9 wins, exceeding that number, will prove to be a challenge.
It will. And going on the road to Clemson, South Carolina in week 2 is no easy task. However, Clemson's replacing a lot of pieces off of that defense, and that'll be their first real challenge. Of course, Texas A&M last year, I think, surprised everyone with how well they played Clemson here at Kyle Field in week number 2. Clemson only won that game by a couple points, so I think that's a huge opportunity for Texas A&M to see where they're at and measure up, not just against one of the best teams in the ACC, but obviously as the defending national champion, one of the best teams in college football.
Kellen Mond getting ready to go. The junior out of San Antonio has started the majority of the games in his career, but first season that he'll go into the opener as the unquestioned starter, although certainly plenty of talent behind him on the depth chart. Maroon team, the winners of the toss. They want the ball first. Well, as Jimbo Fisher just mentioned to Cole, one of the things that he's going to be looking for today, he's been titled as the commissioner for today's game with the play calling duties doled out to Damian Craig for the white squad, and for the maroon squad, it'll be Jay Graham, the running backs coach. He'll be looking to see, as Connor Blumrick comes out here with the maroon squad, to make sure that these guys can run things independently. He made the analogy to basically like Little League. You don't want to be looking over your shoulder to dad in the stands. between every swing for affirmation of what you did, whether it was good or whether it wasn't.
Yeah, and a big part of development, too. Developing players is one thing, but developing coaches is a great opportunity for these guys.
First down throw is caught by Jalen Preston, the sophomore from Manville, Texas, and nowhere to go as he's quickly smothered.
Yeah, this is on Baylor Cupp, the freshman, the tight end. Not the best lookout block out there on the perimeter. We'll get into his story a little bit more as the game progresses. He's a star athletically, but still trying to learn some of the nuances to playing tight end in Jimbo Fisher's offense.
Another look to the sideline and incomplete. Targeting Preston again. The throw coming from Blumrick, the redshirt sophomore, who last year threw just one pass, an 8-yard completion in the opener against Northwestern State after redshirting 2 years ago in his first season on campus.
1 for 1, though. It's 100% completion. It's what you want, right? This has been a fascinating battle for the backup quarterback spot. In college football today, you have to have multiple guys ready to play, and with the departure of Nick Starkel, finding a backup is paramount for this team.
On the inside, handoff to Jacob Kubota, the redshirt sophomore out of Baton Rouge. They try and get back to the original line of scrimmage on the opening drive.
It's a good start for this white defense, and if you look at that interior, I mean, just to watch Texas A&M play defense today as compared to what they looked like a couple years ago, it's a night and day difference. It's a foundational approach that they've taken. It's just amazing to see the progress they've made so quickly under Mike Elko.
What do you think the biggest differences have been?
I would say it's dead. Don't worry. It's okay. I would say the biggest thing is they understand how each individual piece fits into the bigger puzzle. You don't see guys improvising. You don't see guys playing out of position, doing things that are unsound. Cole, when you watch this defense last year, they made you earn every yard, especially on the ground, and that's, I think, where there was a real big difference from where they were a year before.
Well, it starts with the front seven, and you have to have talent up front. Daylon Mack finally lived into that building that he had here in College Station for a couple of years. But it was the mentality, Greg. It was the DNA. It was the mindset that Coach Elko brought to that defense. That was the biggest change that I think we saw with Texas A&M defensively than anybody else or any personnel that we could talk about that's either going to be gone or returning.
And defense is a mentality. I mean, it's, as much as it is being sound and playing your fundamentals, having an edge is a big part of being successful on that side of the ball, and they certainly found one last year.
Here's the first snap for Mond, and he lets it go down the sideline. It's short and taken away. Clifford Chapman, the junior who missed last year with injury, comes up with the interception on the pass intended for Buckley.
And Jimbo Fisher came into today praising Kellen Mond's decision-making. First throw of the spring game, a late throw and a bad decision results in the early turnover for the quarterback.
Season number 2 for Jimbo Fisher is on the horizon, coming your way this fall after a 9-4 season last year, and winners of their last 4, taking down NC State in the Gator Bowl in resounding fashion. And Kellen Mond is going to be the starter. There he is, number 11. But behind him, it's a great trio competing for the backup spot.
Yeah, and they got to find that guy. I mean, Nick Starkel had experience last year, was great for Kellen Mond to lean upon. It was just a really important piece of this team that didn't get the credit he probably deserved, but now they got to find that guy. Who's the guy they can trust if something were to happen to Kellen?
Blumrick on the rollout, and his throw to the sideline falls incomplete. It appears at least that Blumrick, the redshirt sophomore, has the inside track to the backup job, if only because of having more experience than James Foster and Zach Calzada, the early enrollee out of Georgia.
And this is a complicated offense relative to what you see at other places. I mean, Jimbo Fisher runs a pro-style system. He expects pro-style fundamentals and reads, and that's not always easy for a young guy to come in and grasp. So Blumrick getting the early nod here tonight, more than likely because of the experience that he brings to the position.
Greg, you mentioned that system. I thought it was intriguing what Mike brought up early in the broadcast about the comparison to Little League. Can't look over your shoulder and just be told if you're right or wrong. Isn't a lot of college football turning into that anyway? Come to the line of scrimmage, you turn to the sideline, you get a play. It's taken away a lot of the decision-making for quarterbacks at the line of scrimmage and after the ball is snapped. The work's done for them.
Yeah, it's simplified. And these coaches now are so good that they can find the matchup. And I sat in a meeting last year with a very, very well-known offensive coordinator said, I can get a guy open on every play, and I can tell that quarterback where it's going to be and when he needs to throw it. So it's pretty amazing how advanced this offense is compared to how simple it is in other places.
Deep throw, sideline, incomplete, with two defenders trailing on the play.
And what I love, too, about this offense for quarterbacks is that Jimbo is so hands-on with teaching the position that these guys understand when they do it right, when they do it wrong. If they did it right, they can still do it better. He lets them know about it. He coaches them hard. So not only is he challenged physically on every snap, but challenged mentally is really huge, I think, for the development of some of these young players.
Braden Mann on to punt. Last year, averaged 51 yards a kick. Only player in the country better than 50 yards a punt. And this one bounces out of the back of the end zone. Well, tomorrow, 4 Eastern, 3 Central, we'll have more spring football for you. It's Auburn's A-Day at Jordan-Hare, and we cap off the day with Tennessee's annual Orange and White game at Neyland Stadium. Both games also streaming live on the ESPN app. Now, we would have been a game tomorrow as well, but there's threatening weather on the horizon here in College Station, and with everybody looking forward to this game as much as they have been, it's family weekend here in College Station. Wanted to make sure they could get the game in rather than sit around and wait or not have it at all.
And this is a big opportunity for a young team. I mean, this is a young football team.
Mond, an interception on his first series, and takes the short drop off here for the pickup to Jamon Osborne, the junior from Houston, who had 31 catches for 375 last year. There's a bunch of players who are sitting out today. No matter the level of severity of injury, not the day where they want to be able to test how much a player can go. So there are 19 players withheld from action today. And the receiving core hit pretty strongly among those, with 4 of the top 6 names you might expect to see sitting out. One you will see next year is Cameron Buckley, who makes the grab going out of bounds.
A nice job creating separation on the corner route and a nice little rollout. Look, Mond makes a mistake on the first throw of the game. Just excited to get out there, I'm sure. They come back with 2 throws that he's very comfortable with. One on an Osborne underneath, catch and run throw, pretty easy. Simple read. Right there, you get him out of the pocket where he's extremely comfortable as a passer. And he delivers a strike on the sideline.
Bond check down for Deneric Prince, a running back out of the backfield, picks up about 4 yards. That coming after the gain of 24 on the throw to Buckley.
It's funny talking to Jimbo Fisher. He said, really the emphasis so far this spring has been trying to run the football, be physical, and I think both teams are coming out throwing it down in, down out. So clearly the coordinators for today's game trying to sprinkle a little aerial attack.
Mond's got a 2nd and 6. So the defense tightens up before the snap. And Mohamed Diallo swarms in to make a tackle at the line of scrimmage, denying Prince any further advance. You know what's interesting, as we see the defensive line show through there, breaking through the offensive line, for Mike Elko, the defensive coordinator going into his 2nd season, spent a lot of his career under Dave Clawson. He said they've got to replace a lot of guys up front, but it's the line that's the least of his concerns at the end of spring.
Considering the players they lost to, that's remarkable. I mean, they have some really good pieces, some guys that are going to be stars sooner than later here in College Station.
Mond wanted to go across the middle. He did with tight coverage and finds Osborne to make the catch.
Nice job on 3rd down. finding Osmond being big, going over the middle, accurate throw. Third down is an area where this offense can really grow. They converted around 41, 42% in that vicinity. Jimbo, in a perfect world, would love to be at 50%. They were good on short yardage, but it's those third and intermediates where he thinks they can grow a little bit. And that's only going to come with a more established quarterback in Kellen Mond, who has great chemistry with his wide receivers and a great understanding of the principles that they're trying to value on third down.
On first down after the pickup of 8, he splits the tight end, Glenn Beal, off to the right side and finds a reception across the middle again. It's Osmond, the 6'2" junior out of Houston. Those two guys were roommates back in high school at IMG Academy in Florida.
And I like the pocket, too. Nice little movement, just to buy a little extra time. Nice accurate throw over the middle.
Quickly back to the line of scrimmage, handing off for Prince, who gets nothing.
Always wondered in second and short, especially in a spring game. Second and short, I'm throwing it deep. I'm throwing a go route. No matter what, because I know on 3rd and 1, I'm going to come back, I'm going to pick up that yard to gain.
Do you think that the best teams are confident doing that because of their belief that they're going to pick up 3rd and 1 against just about anybody?
100%. Because I know on 3rd and 1, I'm going to get it. If I'm Texas, that's a no doubt. And if I don't get on 3rd and 1, I might go for it on 4th. Especially Jimbo. I mean, he's not afraid to roll the dice with his offense on the field. So on second short, especially in plus territory like this, with momentum and your quarterback who's getting in rhythm as we speak, never understood handing it off on 2nd and 1. Just, I'm taking a shot right there, especially if I'm only getting to call plays for 1 game a year, and I'm Damian Craig.
Well, Mond started off with an interception. Like you said, getting in rhythm. He's completed his last 5 throws. With time down the sideline, tucks it in, and that's a touchdown to Buckley. The white squad strikes first.
This concept is so difficult to cover. It's a little post wheel with a post on the outside which occupies multiple defenders. Mond fakes the swing, which gets the defense to look at the running back. And you have a slot receiver working against a linebacker, which is an advantage for the offense every single time. A good job by Kellen Mond bouncing back after that early interception.
Point after is good for Caden Davis. So Mond stepped in a pothole to start. Completed his last 6 throws, including a strike from 25 yards to give the white team the advantage first quarter. 2 of the biggest names in college coaching are here at Texas A&M. Jimbo Fisher for football and coming off 3 straight NCAA tournaments at Virginia Tech. Now head coach at A&M, Buzz Williams, is with Cole.
Coach Williams, I know you've gotten kind of famous for your quotes and your quote cards. I've talked to you about this before. What was the first quote that you delivered to your new basketball team?
For every mile of road, there's 2 miles of ditch. We got to stay out of the ditch.
A lot of people debated, was this an elite job before you took it? What made this an elite job for you that made you want to take it?
Yeah, I think elite's always in the eye of the beholder, right? And so I'm not smart enough to know what other people think of the job, but I think the ceiling here is very high and incredibly excited about the opportunity.
You have deep Texas roots. How did that play into you becoming the new Texas A&M basketball coach?
Yeah, I don't think that it hurt. My wife is from Texas. Our youngest son was born about 2 miles from where we're doing this interview. So I think for my family, it's really cool. But you never take a job just because of where it's at. You take a job for the potential. And just because that it's in the state that I'm from, I think that'll help us.
You're here at the spring game. What have the conversations been like with Jimbo Fisher, the head football coach, since you arrived?
Well, this is my 8th day, and so I've been running around, but I was able to connect with him 1 day last week. Incredible coach, incredible career, and he's been very kind to me in the time that I've been here.
Now, a lot of us SEC fans are sort of new to college basketball, at least March Madness and elite college basketball. For those that don't know, how would you describe your style of basketball?
I think we play hard. I think we try to play the right way. I think we play for one another. We want to play with as much versatility, not only on offense, but also on defense. I think our style of play has continued to refine in the last 12 years. I think we've continued to find ways to get better, and we've been able to find the right kinds of prospects that we want to coach. So I hope that we're continuing to find ways to improve.
Do I get a quote card before we?
I have as many as you want.
Oh, there we go. Coach, thanks for joining us. I'm going to get my quote card guys back up to you.
And that comes as no surprise. I think fans in Aggieland will quickly fall in love with Buzz Williams as the head basketball coach because he's much more than a guy who coaches for 40 minutes. Having watched what he did at Marquette, went to the Sweet 16 multiple times there, had the best 5-year stretch in Virginia Tech basketball history. He changes players' lives, and I don't mean that to sound hyperbolic in any way, but he recruits guys who are not 5-star players and turns it into 5-star teams.
Yeah.
And I think that he's going to take A&M basketball in the right direction very quickly.
And what I appreciate, too, is A&M has made a remarkable commitment to their coaches in both men's basketball and in college football. I mean, there's no denying that there's deep pockets here in Aggieland. We know that. There's tremendous.
It's the most profitable college football program in America.
Well, the endowment here is actually higher than every other SEC school combined. So if that tells you anything, that deep pockets, but they've made the right hires. You can go out and spend money recklessly all you want, but you got to go out and hire the right guy, and they certainly have done that in football with what they've done with Jimbo Fisher, and it feels like they've gotten it right, of course, too, now in men's basketball as well.
3rd down and a dozen, and Blumrick finds Jalen Preston, who is open and navigates his way for 18 yards, 6 more than they needed to get the first down.
Now, you don't want to see that if you're Texas A&M and you're watching this secondary hoping for improvement. Just lose sight of how many yards to gain, and they give up a freebie underneath.
Nicely defended by Debione Renfro, the junior. He's 3rd on the team, breaking up 5 passes last year.
And they say that he's had a really nice spring. And if you look at the secondary, that was the weak link. And there's no denying that. That was the weak link of this team. They gave up a lot of big plays through the air. And that needs to be a group that improves tremendously. Now, the guys that are out there right now, they're going to have some pretty stiff competition. They went out and made that a position of priority on the recruiting trail. They went and got a JUCO guy who they feel good about. So this secondary might look vastly different here a couple months from now.
Kubota's got it, 6.5 left in the first.
Here's those defensive backs from last year, and they just were so up and down. And part of that is because the guys were recruited by the previous staff to play press man coverage. Press man coverage, what they know. They didn't have to pattern match. They didn't have to pass things off. So those things take time. And as a result, that group really struggled over the course of the season.
Do you have to be a more cerebral player to have played here successfully the last year and going into this year than under a previous style?
I would say not necessarily more cerebral, but on the defensive side especially, you have to be more instinctive. And you have to have great chemistry with the guys around you, with the way they try to pass things off and the way that it's not, hey, I'm covering that guy, I'm going to go cover him the whole entire game. Yeah, they'll throw a little man in, but that's not who they are. It's more about, okay, I trust that you are going to be responsible for the in-breaking route. I'm responsible for the out-breaking route. You're going to do your job. I'm going to do my job. And they won't be mixed up in between. This too often last year, there were mix-ups in the secondary, and guys got beat.
First down run to the +40 for Kubota, who keeps the legs churning. You mentioned junior college and recruiting there. It's Elijah Blades,
right,
the junior college transfer they're getting from Arizona Western College to go along with 3 more freshman defensive backs who will report for camp over the summer.
10 out of 10 name, too. I mean, Elijah Blades at corner, like how good is that? I mean, that's unbelievable. So they're excited about those young guys. Of course, playing corner in the SEC is challenging because the receivers are big and the receivers are extremely talented. But they think those guys can play early and be a factor.
And we get a look at Baylor Cupp, the freshman tight end, early enrollee who makes the catch, and the ball is loose, out of bounds along the sideline after the white team had snatched it away, and Leon O'Neal had fallen on top of it.
It was a nice job by Jalen Preston to pop that ball out as well, playing a little defense after the turnover.
It was really nice, and Baylor Cupp, a little bit of a slow start so far. Missed a block early, a fumble there, but the young freshman will get another chance as the white team takes over on offense.
Biggest names in the draft for 3 nights only. Dropping the greatest hits live from Nashville. The NFL Draft begins April 25th on ESPN and ABC.
And there's a very good likelihood that some former Aggies will hear their names called during that draft. Coming up from Nashville, let's take a look back. Baylor Cupp was the recipient, the highly touted freshman tight end, and the ball came loose. White team takes over.
Yeah, a really nice job, too, by Leon O'Neal. I mean, just ripping at that ball, and a nice job of recovering by a wide receiver chasing him down and stripping it out from him. But just something Baylor Cupp will learn. When you're getting surrounded by a bunch of defenders, you have to have two hands on the ball. Cover it up as best you can.
So Mond is back to work. 6 for 6 on his last drive, 77 yards, ended with a touchdown. He's taken down there, and no physical contact for him.
A little bit of a mix-up here on the motion. The cross motion runs directly into Andre Boykin was the motioner. Then Eric Price was the running back.
Well, it just goes to show wherever you're going, right, for every mile of road, there's 2 miles of ditch.
That's true. And it's one of those things too. When you're working with guys that don't always work together because a lot of the starters aren't participating today, those things happen. It's a timing and it's a chemistry thing that wouldn't happen if the starters were likely in there.
We got 4 receivers out today and 3 of the top running back options as well. That's a position we've really yet to touch on, but it's going to be a very important one. No Ja'Shawn Corbin today, no Cordarian Richardson, no Vernon Jackson among the running back group for Texas A&M. And they've got a lot of work to do to replace Travion Williams, the leading rusher in the SEC a year ago.
Guys, it's kind of incredible to me how little people are talking about the loss of Travion Williams. This young man led the SEC in rushing last season. It's not an easy feat to do. He's been nothing but productive when he's been in the Texas A&M lineup for the past 3 years. A 2-time 1,000-yard rusher. His productivity is going to be missed greatly. We talk a lot about Eric McCoy, Jay Sternberger, the guys along that front 7, but Travion Williams is not someone who can be forgotten as far as how difficult he'll be to replace.
No, but I think Ja'Shawn Corbin, he has that potential. Now, is he immediately going to step in and be Travion Williams? Likely no. But he has that potential to be a real difference maker for the Aggies at running back.
Osborne takes the flip, and nothing doing as the Aggies go for some misdirection.
A little reverse off the jet sweep for the handoff to the wide side,
Going back to Corbin, Greg, I talked to Jimbo Fisher on the field for a few minutes before the game about the running backs. Really, really likes Corbin, raved about him, loves his size. He's a little bit bigger, can maybe give them a little bit more between the tackles when he is healthy this fall.
You really need to find more than one guy at that position. So they know that Corbin's going to be a guy. There's no denying that. Just got to find a couple other pieces to be able to complement Corbin throughout the season.
On 3rd down on the rollout, incomplete.
Jimbo's not going to be happy here. And he's going to be all over.
So what's he going to pick on here?
Because Kellen's outside the pocket, he's rolling backwards, and he loses 12 yards. And this is a group that gave up a lot of sacks last year. They gave up way too many sacks for Jimbo Fisher's comfort level. Some of that's on the offensive line, and the offensive line at times last year was a little leaky. But I think, too, in his development, Kellen Mond's got to have a better understanding of the clock, the internal clock of when to cut it loose. And that was an opportunity there on 3rd and long. And you just gave them a first down by taking the sack of 12 yards. So you got to be smarter, especially when your punter's as good as man. You can pin a guy deep inside the 10 and likely get it back 3 plays later if your defense shows up.
It's been a great season for recruiting for Jimbo Fisher and company, checking in at number 3, and Alabama setting a record 24 ESPN 300 players out of their 27. But A&M also not only a great class, 3rd in the country this year. And as we sat in Jimbo Fisher's office earlier this afternoon, he feels like they're one more really strong class away from being a very deep team at every spot.
Yeah, I asked him point blank. I said, okay, look, we know what the expectations are. We know it's to win championships, your national championships. So that means you got to catch Alabama. And he thinks with another class, they're going to be close on depth and quality throughout their roster.
Zach Calzada, the early freshman enrollee, checks in. The freshman from Buford, Georgia, throws it out of bounds.
And Jimbo Fisher talked a lot about Calzada and just how live his arm is. Really throws a nice ball, spins a tight ball. Has been pretty accurate. He thinks he's got a chance to be a really good player in this offense. Just got to continue to get comfortable. And as a freshman, like we've alluded to, there's a lot going on when you're playing within Jimbo Fisher's offense. Mentally, in a pretty good spot. Physically, he's outstanding. Just got to come along and get a little more comfortable, and that comes with more reps.
Well, Greg, I was a little disappointed with you earlier today because you asked Coach Fisher, is he going to be good? And it was a close-ended question, so I was silently judging you. But Jimbo gave the answer. He said no. And he paused for effect, and he said no. He's going to be great. Right. So they're very high on Calzada.
They are, and he's another piece, along with Blumrick, that's contending for that backup quarterback job. And in a perfect world, and Jimbo Fisher would probably tell you this, redshirting in this offense is ideal. Just gives you a year to run the scout team, get comfortable with the speed of the game, while learning the nuances of playing the position within this set. So I think in a perfect world for him, he'd redshirt this year and then contend to be the starter potentially here in a couple years.
First 2 incomplete passes were thrown wide. That one slips away, and so it's 4th down on 3 incomplete passes. And the head coach steps in to the young man who's been on campus for just a couple of months.
Incomplete passes, but not bad passes. Right there, throwing it away from the defender just a little wide. And then you saw Jimbo Fisher give him a little fist bump because that was a well-thrown football. 2 rolls to the right. Missed a little bit on the first one. Second one was well thrown, just well covered as well. So might be 0 for 3, but I'll say that all 3 of those throws were pretty accurate.
Guys, I love how when we sat in meetings, Jimbo Fisher told us, I don't care about completion percentage. It's not important to me. I care about throws that are supposed to be made, completions that are supposed to happen. Completion percentage is not important. He's 100% okay with his guys throwing the football away, 100% okay taking an incompletion if it's thrown in a safe zone away from where it could be a potential turnover. That's that next level coaching that you talked about, Greg, that quarterbacks at Texas A&M are going to get that they might not get at a lot of other places.
I think he's the best. I really believe that. I think he's the best quarterback coach as far as developing you over the course of a 4-year period. I mean, the proof's in the pudding. How many first rounders does he have? I mean, it's unbelievable how many guys he's developed into stars, and he does it as well as anybody.
4th quarterback of the evening, James Foster, hands off, and a flag trails the backside of the play as Prince took the carry.
Holding, offense, number 51. 10-yard penalty from the previous spot. Replay, first down.
Well, one of the pieces that's going to get a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of rebuilding this year is going to be the offensive line. They'll return 3 starters. And Cole, I think I can see you through my binoculars. Your eyebrows are perking up as we're talking about the offensive line.
Turn Cole's mic off. Turn Cole's mic off. He'll fill it up for the next quarter.
But the biggest one is going to be at center, where they lose Eric McCoy, a 3-year starter. 1st and 20. And maybe a yard for Prince.
As we take a look here at James Foster, it's well put together. I mean, he's lifted, man. I mean, he's thick, good athlete, can move. Another one of these guys that's contending for that backup quarterback job. He's got a chance at it, too. I looked at him throwing it. I mean, he's got a nice motion. Ball jumps out of his hand. Just can be a little more consistent.
Sat last year, but one of the things that you hear when it comes to Foster is how strong his arm is. See if he puts it to work on 2nd and 19. He escapes the pocket. And his run is terminated just a few yards after that. He meets Jeremiah Martin, the sophomore from California. Saw the field in 11 games last year. White up 7-0 with a minute to go here first quarter on the strength of a 25-yard touchdown pass from Kellen Mond at the opposite end zone.
This feels like a real game. I mean, so many times you go to these spring games and you're not really sure what to expect. I mean, if there's one thing that we've learned from Jimbo Fisher, though, he's going to try to simulate game reps as best as he possibly can. And outside of the quarterbacks getting hit, this is the real deal.
Well, that pays off to perfection. They needed 17 yards, and they get all the way out to the 39-yard line.
Man, this makes your skin crawl if you're watching as a defender. 3rd and long, obvious play, screen alert. Got to always be thinking screen in the 3rd and long situation. You give up a big one backed up, and you're probably going to get the ball at midfield if you're the Maroon team. And after the long play, it's a fresh set of downs for the white squad.
23-yard throw and run, and one more snap in the quarter if they want it. Got a horse collar, it appears, there, as Osborne was taken down to end the quarter, a gain of about 2.
Well, looks like a face mask as he grabbed it. You saw that head kind of tweak back to the right.
There was a hand without deliberation where it should not have been.
Personal foul, face mask, defense, number 4. That's a 15-yard penalty, resulting in a first down. There will be one untimed down.
It's Derek Tucker charged with the infraction.
Going back to talking about how this feels like a real game. I've never seen an untimed down in a spring game. Usually, all right, we'll go to take the quarter, we'll go flip it. All this. No, Jimbo wants these guys because it's a young team, like we've talked about. A lot of young players getting their first real action, extensive action here at Kyle Field, trying to make it as realistic as possible so that when they're here on the field in the fall, it won't be too big for them. It won't feel like something they haven't done before.
Prince in the backfield with Ben Miles, the fullback, to the left of Foster. So the end time down does not yield anything for the offense. 1 touchdown in the first 15 minutes in the maroon and white game. 25 yards, Mon to Buckley. We go to the second in College Station on the other side.
The College Football Playoff lives on ESPN.
We welcome you back to College Station, Texas, as we go to the second quarter of the maroon and white game. Moved up a day because of the threat of inclement weather tomorrow, and in the first quarter, 25-yard touchdown, Kellen Mond to Cameron Buckley, the only score so far. 2nd and 18 after a sack ended the first quarter. And Prince out of the backfield with the advance. Glad to have you with us. My cousins, Greg McElroy, Cole Kubelik, roving down on the sidelines here on a cool Texas evening.
It's so good to be in a stadium. Like, I don't mean to go too Bill Walton, way off the reservation, but
I love football.
Thank you for my life. No, it's just so good to just be in the stadium. We got pads popping, Aggies are on the field. I'm on cloud 9 right now. The only guy happier than me right now is Cole as he watches this offensive line do work in the trenches.
Although that time finding themselves getting bumped backward, leading to a sack of Foster from Jaden Peavy.
It's going to be really interesting to see how things eventually settle themselves up front for this Aggie group. I mean, the offensive line, I wouldn't say that it was a position of strength last year, but it wasn't a massive liability. And they need to make sure that they solidify that center position because Eric McCoy's departure is a significant one. And if they can be strong on the inside, they'll be okay at tackle. So I'm very interested to watch that group progress, not just today, but throughout the summer and fall camp.
Last punt for Man went 59. This one's another boomer. The net gets hurt as it goes into the end zone. Sunday, 7 Eastern, 6 Central will have the second game of a big 3-game set between number 19 Georgia and number 7 Alabama at Rhodes Stadium in Tuscaloosa. SEC softball also available on the ESPN app, so you can watch anywhere. The Tide 39-4 right now, part of a 3-way tie for second place in SEC softball with LSU. Beth Torina's squad leading the way as we close in about a month away from the start of the postseason for college softball.
It's upon us, man. College softball winding down quick. I mean, where does the time go? I mean, softball's coming up. Road to Oklahoma City is one of the best tournaments. Seriously, I love softball. such a good watch. It's a unique watch. Those women are so impressive. And baseball, man, because of the SEC network and the launch of these conference networks, college baseball's never been better, never had more coverage, and it's fun to take it in this time of year as a college fan.
I was in Lincoln, Nebraska last week for college baseball.
Very nice.
Purdue and Nebraska, packed the house, 5,000 every night.
I'm telling you,
beautiful.
Man. It's great. College baseball is fantastic. The problem is you never knew where to watch it. And now that the SEC network exists and other conferences have their networks as well, you know where to watch it. And I think as a result, people are starting to realize the quality. I mean, it's really, really good. And man, some of these venues scattered throughout the Southeast are absolutely incredible. And the support's remarkable, too.
A really good crowd here tonight as well for the 4th largest college football stadium in the country. There's some speed out of the gate. They hand off to Kubota, and a flag comes from the backside.
This is a good crowd
Holding
for a spring
offense,
game.
number 77, 10-yard penalty, replay, second down.
We've cycled through the 4 quarterbacks that we expect to see today, and we mentioned Nick Starkel, who announced his transfer. He's going to Arkansas. On campus today, though, to get his Aggie ring. It's been a huge weekend here in College Station with families in town and, of course, the rings.
And I definitely want to tip my cap to Nick Starkel, man. I mean, he's handled everything with this situation. Last year I was doing the game. It appeared like this was his job. This was his team. Kellen Mond comes out in the spring game, plays extremely well, carries that momentum into the summer, but Nick Starkel hung around, was a great teammate, and now will proudly wear an Aggie ring, even as he heads on to Arkansas. Now, he probably won't wear it on the field when he's throwing it, but he's a proud alum now, and I'm happy for the way he's handled it. I hope things work out well for him at Arkansas. They need improvement in the worst way at quarterback, and maybe he can be that guy.
Greg, I agree with you 100%, Greg. And we had the opener here last year when it was really coming down to Starkel or Mond. He handled it great then. Jimbo Fisher praised the way that he handled it throughout the season. All the negativity surrounding transfers and quarterbacks and movement and how everybody handles their individual situation and can't put the team first. Nick Starkel put the team first all of last year, and you can't help but root for him and hope that things work out for the best.
Hard charging up the sideline, Kubota. He's played in 6 games in his career, just 1 last year. The redshirt sophomore out of Baton Rouge lowers the shoulder, a gain of 24.
Man, well, they've emphasized third downs, and we've now seen a conversion on 3rd and 20 and 3rd and 17, both of which on receptions by running backs. One on the screen, one right there on a little outlet. So a good job by the freshman Calzada saying, hey, I'll check it down. I'm fine. I don't need to throw it deep. I'll go through my progressions. I'll get to the best ball carrier on the field and see if he can pick it up for me. And sure enough, that's exactly what he does.
I suppose I couldn't be with 2 better people to ask this question, a former quarterback and a former center, as you talk about rebuilding some parts of an offensive line. Some quarterbacks on this roster more mobile than other. Mond rushed for almost 500 last year, 7 touchdowns on the ground. Do offensive linemen prefer to play with a pocket quarterback or one who can get out and run?
A good quarterback.
Yeah.
Who cares? If you play with a quarterback like Greg that runs a 7.7 40, but he gets the ball out on time, nobody cares.
Is that record speed?
Record in the worst way.
Yes, the wrong end of the spectrum.
Right.
Mike, here's the thing that people forget, though. You can talk about a mobile quarterback and how they can move and they can save you at times, but that can get you in trouble in times as well. Guys leave the pocket too early. That gives defenders a different angle to be able to potentially go make a sack or tackle for loss. They hold on to the ball too long, moving in the pocket, scrambling outside of the pocket, maybe take a sack like we saw Kellen Mond do earlier in this game. It can work against you at times. And that's when all your fundamentals kind of break down when that quarterback starts to move.
Yeah, and just think about it. If it's a moving target, the defensive linemen are rushing in one particular direction. The offensive line, they don't have eyes in their back of their head. They don't know where the quarterback is. So when you change the launch point as a mobile quarterback, sometimes those defensive linemen who are engaged with an offensive lineman, the offensive line has it taken care of. When you move as a quarterback, those guys can disengage and reestablish their pass rush. So I've always said a quarterback that can be stable in the pocket but gets it out quick is the toughest thing to defend. There's nothing more frustrating than trying to rush Tom Brady. Tom Brady can't run out of sight in a day. But I tell you what, he can move 1.5 yards to his right, 1.5 yards to his left, 3 yards up and 3 yards back better than anybody that's ever done it. And as a result, the guy never gets hit and will play until he's 50.
part of being able to get the ball off quickly is one of the things that they hope to develop in this offense is receivers understand exactly what's asked of them, their route trees, combinations. That was somewhat of what the coaching staff said was perhaps a little bit of a frustration for Kellen Mond of you've got on the wide receiver depth chart 5 guys out, and not all of them were out for all of spring practice, but not to be able to work with them and understand the nonverbal cues that they need to know from one another to know where to be and where the ball is going to be.
And this offense not only expects a lot from the quarterback, but expects a lot from the wide receivers, too. They have to read coverage, they have to feel zones, they have to adjust routes depending on what the defender's doing. So that takes time as well.
3rd and 10, and yet another 3rd down, a big pickup. It's about 15 yards, make it 14.
So many times, young quarterbacks, man, when it's 3rd and long, I mean, you just look, all right, where are my throws down the field? Right there, he throws a little hitch, gets it to a guy in space, and he makes a play for you. This is great learning for Calzada to just take what the defense gives you, regardless of the situation. Take what the defense gives you and let your playmakers make plays.
I think about 2 other things, guys, that Jimbo Fisher emphasized to us in meetings. 1, contested catches. 2, breaking tackles. He wants to develop more explosive plays. They had 212 of them last year. He said he's good with that number, but he wants more. And ways that they can get those would be contested catches in traffic, his receivers coming down with the ball, and then obviously his backs and receivers breaking tackles.
Holding on the defense, number 6, 10-yard penalty, first down.
And the contested catches are something he said they work on every day for the receivers to know where they need to be, the defensive backs to work on their angles on those throws, because if you're not practicing it, when the time comes, the theory is you won't be ready for it.
Yeah, and you want to turn 50-50 balls into 75-25. That's what Clemson did. Look at Clemson's explosiveness offensively. Their wide receivers went up and grabbed the ball out of the air so many times last year. That's what Jimbo's trying to get out of this receiver group.
Long rollout leads to a wide open grab and a touchdown for Baylor Cupp. 31 yards as he came down the seam and found himself in great position.
Oh, I love this play. The old full roll throwback to the tight end. And a great job of uncovering in the seam up the left-hand side. Baylor Cupp has had a really shaky start to this game. Had a fumble, had a drop, missed a block. That's why it doesn't matter where you start, it's where you finish. And right there he finishes with his first reception into the end zone.
Well, it's remarkable that a native Texan named Baylor ended up at A&M. But he's got a chance to be a big part of their future. A lot to replace through the air, and Cupp can help make up that ground. The touchdown for the freshman. HatCam brings you not only the beauty of the freshman quarterback Zach Calzada, but the agility of the 53-year-old head coach. Jimbo's scooting out of the way.
Tremendous quickness. Great ankle flexibility. I mean, Cole, that was like they're looking for cornerbacks, right? They're trying to improve at corner, and then the secondary. Maybe Jimbo go give it a run on the defense side.
Maybe he needs to leave those quarterbacks alone and go work with the corners.
That was great explosiveness.
Calzada finished off that drive strong. 31-yard touchdown. Completions of 24, 11, and 14 as well. Very confident in the direction of the program. 9-4 last year. Will start the 2019 season on a 4-game winning streak. And he feels like, of course this can be a big year for them, but especially because as he talks about culture, he says it takes you about 2 years to really instill a culture. Year 1, you don't know whether guys are going to buy in, how they're going to respond to you, but year 2, if they're in, they're in, and if they're not, they've probably left.
They are definitely bought in to what he's trying to preach on both offense and on defense.
A gaping hole to start the drive for Deneric Prince. Finds himself across midfield.
Nice kick out front side. Guys, I'm down here with Jimbo as well. You like the backside of the block there on inside zone?
We do. We got good push on the front side and got that 3 technique scooped out, and they get that seam inside. Prince is a talented guy, boy. He's a young freshman back. He's a talented guy when you get him in space.
You don't know the plays here, right? Your other guys calling?
No, they're calling. I kind of know.
How do you watch this? How's Jimbo Fisher watching?
I'm watching inside out right now. First, I'm getting the coverage and hear his calls. I'm hearing his mic declarations, and then I'm looking inside. I'm watching inside out right here on the run. Snaps. Good run. Almost got it again. Getting too much penetration.
They got to get the snap down.
They do bad snap. You know that throws the timing. Everybody talked about pass. It throws the run timing off worse than it does the pass. And that's a young center. That's Luke Matthews right there. He's going to be a heck of a center for us, I think. We moved him in spring, right in the middle of spring, so he's had about 6 practices.
Well, you get in these situations, you get amped up a little bit. It's easy to have one sail on you.
It really is. And who you're blocking out here in front of the stadium, all of a sudden the lights are on and it matters.
It's a little different.
It is. See what we got right here. Got some kind of run motion, a little bit of play action. Yep, right there. Little snag concept inside, snag flat 7. It was a good deal right there. Good read. He had a corner read. He had the flat. When they run to the flat, he gave him a low inside three. It was a real good read by James right there.
Why did that play get open?
Because the motion, we got the eye violation, and they brought the blitz, and then they couldn't get number 3 back to the snag on there. They couldn't match it coming back from the other side.
I think Greg McElroy is the only one that knows what he's talking about right there.
I know the snag 7
flat 7.
I know
that's the most universal pass in football right there.
The snag
Everybody
7
at all
flat.
levels runs it. But it works, so it doesn't matter. It's easy, simple stuff for these guys, allowed to get the ball distributed. We got to get those snaps down. The timing's messed. That's a good run. Get up back inside. There you go. That's what I want to see from those young backs, being able to – everybody wants to bounce things. In this league, you got to run it between the tackles. You got to push that pile. That's what Travion did so well for us. You know, you have 4-yard runs. All of a sudden, they'd be 6-yard runs.
How much you going to miss him? Not everybody. Listen, you're losing your best offensive lineman. You're losing a lot of guys on the front 7. You're losing a heck of a tight end. Travion led the SEC in rushing last year. How much will he be missed?
A big time. And not just for the production on the field, but for his practice ethic, his toughness. And I mean, when it wasn't going well, all I had to do was give him a look, and he was right on those. I mean, he loved to compete, and I mean, he's unbelievably productive. I mean, I love him, but just his overall leadership, everything about Travion is a winner.
What do you see on defense here? Good run look?
4-2. They're coming down man coverage, naked. Got to see if he can play it. I like it. I love it. Great play right there. And what he did, he avoided negative play too. He had negative. The end played it on the boot. And you should never have a negative play on boot because you're outside the pocket. At least you get it out. But he threw a ball right there under duress where we could get it, no one could get it. And if we miss it, we're still 2nd and 10, and he throws it where it's a catchable ball. That was a really good play for you.
You got on Kellen on that boot earlier. He took a sack. You go good and well. He's not getting sacked in the game.
Well, it wasn't. But it wasn't a boot. It was a drop back. We had to break down and protection.
He left the pocket, okay.
And I was getting on the receiver. He stuttered too much, and on 3rd and 12, you know them guys are laid back. You can't stutter that route. We got to come out and get the time. We got to get out of there. You know, people say linemen, but them receivers got to get in that route to make the quarterback's read develop. And we ran the route a little bit slow. It was actually a drop back pass that got pushed. I love this. Oh, got a double move. Give him a chance. No, oh my Lord, missed the breakaway layup.
You want to pull him to the back corner of the end zone there, right?
And while you're up, you don't have to. When you beat him right there like that, it's an upfield inside shoulder throw, and just don't miss the breakaway. That's a breakaway layup or a breakaway dunk. He just threw it off the back of the rim.
But that's one thing that you talk to your quarterbacks about. You told us that there are certain windows that it's okay to miss as long as you're avoiding turnovers.
It's a safe throw. We're still in field goal range. But like I say, right there, when you're a young quarterback, and Greg can attest to this, you make the play and you see it and you want to make it so bad, you got to just relax and make the throw instead of hurrying up, and that's what he did right there. It's a great read. I love the read. I love the decision. You just got to finish it off.
What's this bunch set do for you over here on the left side?
Creates a bunch in the numbers game, and right there, I don't know what's going to be interesting there, if that's a defense or an offense. If they cross the line of scrimmage, that's enticing on defense. That's what I thought. That's going to be interesting because they enticed them, if I'm not mistaken, if they cross the neutral zone. Because we teach our guys to jump. If they cross, we're going to jump and grab.
Gold purple we used to run.
I'm going to ask him why that wasn't enticing. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Well, we're trying to create a bunch. How they're going to play it. The 3-by-1 sets
Offense.
makes you determine how they're going to slide the backers or the safeties, whether you're going to attack weak or go back strong with numbers and what we did. I like to see that on film. That's going to be interesting.
None of us are surprised that you want that to be on the defense, Coach.
No, but I was hoping if what we teach is if they cross that line of scrimmage,
you're doing the right thing.
You're trying to grab them and grab the penalty. That's why so if he didn't, he got to learn to, again, not get panicky. Wanting to do. That's why he did it. See what he does.
One-on-one at the top, Coach.
One-on-one at the top, Greg says. Osmond?
Yep. He got the ball out. Had a run. That was RPO right there. He had an RPO, got a blitz up inside. He was trying to get it outside to get the edge. I like a stop right there. This should be, is it 2nd down or 3rd down? It's 2nd down. get part of it back and make sure you're getting a good read. But he did have one-on-one back here on the backside. But
You have to feel good about some of the long conversions you've had tonight.
I have. Third down, we've hit our screen game has been really good. And like you say, to control rush, you got to be able to do that. And you know that because you can't just sit and drop back all day. And you got good backs to get them in space all day. But
White.
been able to do that. And that RPO game today has been pretty good.
Coach, great stuff. Thank you so much. We'll catch up again later.
7-7, 6:40 in the second quarter after an enticing conversation between Coach and Cole. From a coaching career that began at Samford and then Auburn, Cincinnati, LSU, Florida State, a national championship, and now you're number 2 here at Texas A&M. I'll tell you what, it was really pretty cool sitting in his office, which I think the seating area in there is nicer than 98% of living rooms across America. Truly astoundingly appointed. Talking about recruiting, though, and the great class they're bringing in, it'll be 3rd in the country for this class of 2019. And recruiting the state of Texas has been great, but the geographical diversity for which they're striving is something that may be unprecedented here.
And that's one thing that really makes Texas A&M unique. It never had national appeal until recently, until, frankly, Johnny Football. And now everyone.
John Football?
Excuse me, John Football.
Thank you.
Or Jay Footy, whatever. I'm good. I don't care. It became a national brand. And the move to the SEC has been terrific for them as well. But now they can go to California. They can go to Pennsylvania and recruit where they've gone. They can go to the Northeast. And people resonate with Texas A&M football. That wasn't always the case. So it's been huge to be able to not just recruit the state as well as they have, but also to get into other areas of the country where there's pockets of talented players.
Kick good from 45, White up 3. Welcome to your new reality, 2019, trying to build on a 9-win season for A&M. They'll see from the AP Top 25, the final poll of last year, 4 of the top 7 teams, and week number 2 going to Clemson. That's quite a way to start off the season.
You're going to see where you're at pretty quickly, that's for sure. But having moved that first game up to Thursday, that buys them a couple extra days to prepare and to get rested up for what should be an incredible road trip for this Aggie team.
It's a tough way to start, but I think when you look at the way that they're going to have to end, that is even more scary.
I'll tell you what, though, I mean, that 4-game stretch of home games, that's helpful. I mean, as far as their travel's concerned, it's not overwhelming. The back half of the schedule, I think you look at Ole Miss, still trying to figure out who they're going to become. Mississippi State likely to take a slight step back this year, given the pieces they have to replace. South Carolina, it's anybody's guess as to what they're going to be, and it's here in Kyle Field. Like, they could get on a nice little run, get some momentum going prior to playing at Georgia, which will, of course, will be a very difficult test as well.
Blumrick evades pressure, throws into traffic, and he's picked off. Second interception of the game. Mon threw the first, and this is picked off by Moses Reynolds.
He just broke the golden rule of playing quarterback. Never be late throwing it over the middle. He was late, had to adjust, avoid a defender, and a nice job, too, by Moses Reynolds on the back end, undercutting that in-breaking route run by Jalen Preston. That was a really nice defensive play, but still, Blumrick, you can't do that in this league. Competing for a quarterback job, trying to make a play, completely understand that. We've all been in that situation that have been trying to compete for a backup spot or a starting spot. You got to understand, though, what you can pull off and what you can do physically, and that's not it, not at this league.
So short field for Mond and company. One play, and it's a score as he hits Glenn Beal, the sophomore tight end, from 29 yards out. Mond has his second touchdown pass of the first half.
That play looks awfully familiar because the exact same play was thrown by Calzada to Baylor Cup for a touchdown just a little while ago. A little different alignment and formation, but it's the old full roll throwback to the tight end. And I remember last year when Jay Sternberger burst onto the scene, A&M fans screamed and yelled and were so excited about the prospects of having a tight end involved in the passing game. You think that is a position of strength now? Not only do they have Baylor Cup as one of the biggest recruits at tight end in the country, who's bound to become a star, but Tell you what, Jimbo Fisher could not say enough good things about Glenn Beal. More of a blocker, more of an inline guy whose strength is certainly in the run game, but they throw a big guy a bone, and he gets to pay dirt here in the spring game.
Greg, to shed some light on how things can change from this time of the year to when Labor Day rolls around, what was the buzz around Sternberger last year at this time?
Well, in standard, typical Jimbo Fisher fashion, he said, this guy's got a chance to be one of the best we've had. He's as good as O'Leary. He went through it.
That was you saying that. I thought we had audio of Coach Fisher.
I think Matt Stincham's got some competition.
I got a good Jimbo. I do love Jimbo, but he loves the tight end, and he loves to feature the tight end. It's a very important position in this offense, and they lost a great one in Sternberger. And they said last year, hey, this guy's got a chance to be really good. He practices incredibly hard, and he can really run. So we're all interested in seeing where Jay Sternberger's picked, because I expect him to have a very successful NFL career. He's a quarterback's best friend and was so valuable to this team last year, but there's going to be some quality even in his departure. They're going to be just fine at that position.
Caden Davis handling the kickoff. Last year, Braden Mann had a touchback on 71% of their kickoffs.
Well, after a bad first throw, right here, how quickly we forget. Kellen Mond has now completed 7 in a row, including a couple touchdowns. First one here, as he finds on the wheel route up the sideline and then on the full roll throwback. Who doesn't love this as a quarterback? Got a big tight end, big body, wide open, tough to cover defensively because of all the flow in the run game, and Kellen Mond has quickly turned things around. He's a very mature young man, and they're really pleased with his growth so far. He's going to continue to develop that rapport with the wide receivers as they get healthier in the summer, but a lot of reason to be optimistic about what he's going to become in 2019.
And guys, Jimbo did point out to me after that first Kellen Mond interception that he wasn't upset about that. Said he got a defender down around his feet, couldn't step into that throw, and kind of changed his arm angle a little bit, Greg. So fundamentally, couldn't really do what he needed to do to make that throw accurate.
No, that's one where you cut your losses, though. You know, first play, it's like, you want to let it rip. I mean, clearly, it doesn't matter. I mean, the first play is dead, buried, and gone. Move on, and he's bounced back in impressive fashion.
They try to cut down on the sacks, retooling the offensive line this year. He was sacked 34 times last year. In Power 5 conferences, only Joe Burrow and Clayton Thorson were sacked more times last year. So, Cole, how important are these practices here before you get into the summer to establish rapport with the offensive line?
Critical. You have to try and find a way to begin to gel because, Mike, the only way to get better as an offensive lineman is to do it against somebody who's trying to make you look bad. It's the only way. You have to have pads on. You have to be going full speed. And you have to be doing it against guys going full speed. There's no 7-on-7. You can't go out there and just throw the ball around and work on your routes and work on your angles. You can't go out there and work on flipping your hips as a defensive back. You have to be in pads doing it against guys that are trying to make you look bad. And you're very limited with the amount of those kind of practices that you get these days. So when you get one, you have to make the most of it.
That was another point of emphasis on a somewhat related note of just practicing short yardage situations, of getting those in, because like you said, Cole, you want somebody who's trying to rip your head off, and the best way to simulate that is to do it, and they get those in at the end of practice.
You can't simulate it going half speed. And look, Jimbo said yesterday we did 18 straight reps, goal line. I'm like, what, 18?
I love that so
much.
much.
You had a game today. What do you mean? You did that yesterday. What are you talking about? You did that last week, you mean? He goes, no, yesterday, 18 reps, 18 straight. End of practice. He had a little smile on his face, and he loves it, man. He's all about toughness and physical at the line of scrimmage.
Sack for Blumrick as Clemens gets into the backfield. They projected him to start last year, but missed the season with a broken bone in his foot, number 2 in white.
Yeah, he looks the part too. And I remember doing this game last year, and they were all over a couple guys. They were really excited about Matabike, really excited about Jay Sternberger, and they were really excited about Clemens. Just a big loss for them that no one really knew about, but now, knowing the departures they had up front, he's going to be an important piece to rebuilding that defensive line.
Man nails that punt. Only guy in the country averaging more than 50 a kick last year. Coming your way Sunday, Rally Cap returns for another season to break down the week that was in baseball and softball with highlights, analysis, and interviews. They also get you set with a look ahead at the upcoming week's best matchups. Rally Cap this week, 9 Eastern, 8 Central here on the SEC Network and ESPN app. So starting field position back inside the 4 to close the door on Braden Mann, the punter. He was at 51 yards a punt last year. The next closest was 48 yards a kick. Ryan Stonehouse of Colorado State.
And altitude, by the way.
Right. Mann really separated himself from the field.
I mean, to think that he was several yards clear of a guy that kicked at altitude is pretty remarkable. Uh-oh.
Heavy rush, and the pass goes incomplete with Mond working from his own end zone.
Yeah, that was, if Jimbo Fisher was a defensive coach, that's a safety. But Jimbo Fisher is a quarterback coach, so therefore, no, it's clean. A lot of contact there as Mond releases the ball. I think it's a good no call. I'm glad they didn't call the whistle, that's for sure.
Luke Matthews sends the snap back to Mond, who is out to about the 7-yard line. Matthews at center. One of about 4 guys they've rotated through that position this spring.
Yeah, and they missed the little internal cross, or the little internal pressure. Late getting to it on the kick out. Good job by Mond recognizing that and pulling it.
Greg, they're bringing safety blitz.
They brought corner blitz 2 plays ago. I'm losing my mind. I'm like, oh, Lee, this is.
You said it earlier in the
friends?
broadcast, this is like a real game, and you see the different looks that Elko's given up front, the different blitz packages, pressure packages. This absolutely is testing these offenses as a real game.
It's real.
For the white team.
I mean, safety pressures up the gut.
Timeout in duration.
Corner blitzes, internal twists and cross dogs. Like, it's no joke with what they're trying to throw at these offenses. I appreciate it. I like it.
I love it. Our defense used to be so mad in spring games. We'd go out, they'd have to play a base 4-3 the entire time. Couldn't bring any pressure, couldn't stunt, couldn't even do anything on different passing downs. But they've thrown everything at this group. I'm going to tell you, before the game, I asked Amy and Craig, I said, how are you going to call this game? I said, what's playbook limited? He showed me his sheet. It was extensive. He said, we've got everything. I've got everything here that I can call.
You know, my whole thing is, why be paranoid? I mean,
it's all on film.
It's all on tape.
Everybody can see everything.
Everyone knows what you do. It's not like Jimbo Fisher's like this brand new guy who's just a trailblazer. Like, we know what you run. Like,
we're not coming out in the wishbone.
No,
next year.
Like just put it on tape, man. It's all good.
Third down hits his window as he finds Buckley short of the first down sticks. I find that to be one of the most puzzling aspects of both college and pro sports, is people being worried about what's on tape, because everything's on tape.
Yeah.
Got a player down on the backside of that play.
And that's the one thing about spring games. And that's Tyree Johnson.
Yeah, that's not one they want to see.
It's not one they want to see. Who they're really hoping to fill that void as that edge rusher, that edge presence that can get after the passer. I hope he's okay. Looks like he's all right. Just something walking off under his own power, but certainly in some discomfort. But that's the one thing you want in spring games more than anything else. You want to put things on tape. You want to establish some positions. You want some competitions to heat up heading into the spring or into the summer. But the biggest thing, you just want to get out healthy. Get out alive, no worries, and make sure that you have your entire roster ready to roll when they're back here in a few weeks to start summer conditioning.
And that's part of why you have as many players sitting out today as you do, with 19 players not taking the field tonight. Sunday, 7 Eastern, 6 Central, the second game of a big 3-game set between number 19 Georgia, number 7 Alabama, which got off to an amazingly hot start this year. It comes your way from Rhodes Stadium in Tuscaloosa. SEC softball also available on the ESPN app, so you can watch it wherever you go. Mike Cousins, Greg McElroy, Cole Kubelik down on the sidelines here today for the maroon and white game, getting a good look And a Texas A&M squad that's had a mightily competitive game. We've seen 4 different quarterbacks today. This is the freshman Zach Calzada, the early enrollee, native of Buford, Georgia. Stands 6'3", 202.
Tell you what, I love this
start.
situation.
Offense, number 73, 5-yard penalty, replay, first down.
I love this situation for Calzada. Quarterbacks are defined by what they do in the 2-minute drill. Like, why is Tom Brady the best of all time? He's elite in the 2-minute drill. I mean, there's not a halftime very often that he doesn't get points or at least steal points. This is a game-like situation for the true freshman who's been on campus only a few months to go through a 2-minute drill and to operate the clock and to try to manage this situation the best way he can to make sure they get points, but also run that clock all the way down to the point where the offense on the other team doesn't get a chance to potentially steal some themselves. So this is a real game-like situation for Calzada to showcase what he's capable of.
For a guy who arrives early out of high school, especially in an offense where there's a lot to learn, what impact does it make for him when fall camp starts that he'll have been here for several months already?
So what is I don't know how he does it, to be honest with you. Oh, it's a good throw. Really nice
beautiful catch down the sideline from Cup.
It's a good throw, though. I mean, a little off the mark, maybe just wide and outside, but on a big tight end, Cup will understand how to maybe adjust his body a little earlier to make that catch on the vertical.
I think he mistimed his jump a little bit there.
I think he did too. I just kind of ball carried on him just a touch, and yeah, he just jumped early, Cole. I mean, he was already landing as that ball came down. If he times that up, that's a really well thrown ball, high and outside to a big target.
Blocker in front for Calzada, who's back toward the original line of scrimmage. And Cup is a guy who was one of the top tight ends coming out in this class, 200-meter sprinter in under 23 seconds, and came out of a very small high school, Brock, Texas, with an enrollment of only about 400, and played a different style of football than what he's getting involved with here.
Yeah, I'm from Dallas. I had never heard of Brock, Texas. I hadn't. I mean, usually, you know, most of these guys, you're familiar with their program or you'd heard of it. I hadn't. And they say that he is extremely raw, but there's a couple things you can't teach: size and speed. He has both. He can really run. And if you have a tight end that can run, it becomes immediately a matchup nightmare. Now, there's nuance to his game that he's still going to need to figure out. How to feel zones, how to uncover, how to leverage defenders, how to block on a more efficient level. I mean, he played in a wing T in high school. So this is a huge transition for him, but as far as upside is concerned, they are very, very pleased with where he's eventually going to be.
They've got another tight end coming in, too, out of the Houston area, Jalen Weidermeyer from Dickinson, Texas. Part of that huge recruiting class, which right now they've got 8 players on campus in the incoming class, so still 17 more to go once camp starts up over the summer. There's Beal, the other tight end, gain of 17.
Yeah, how about Glenn Beal getting involved in the action here? And talk about him. He's kind of a blocker. He's a big body, 265, but showing a little agility after the catch.
Jimbo told us Beal's a 4.75 guy. He was their third tight end a year ago, so he's gotten some game reps. Somebody who's shown that he might be able to help stretch the field a little bit and not just be an inline, on the line of scrimmage, bigger body.
And when people hear 4.75, Cole, they're not going to be blown away. I mean, people see 4.3 now at the combine because it's televised, and they're like, oh, well, that's fast. No, 4.75 at 265 is moving. That is really quick. So sometimes when you see those guys that are 270, I mean, 4.9 is a realistic possibility. 4.75 is impressive for a guy that's as strong and as big as he is.
And Cup at 245 runs at 4.55.
Yeah, that's freak show. That's not normal. But that's going to be a position of strength, and it should be. I mean, just given Jimbo Fisher's track record with making sure tight ends are productive, it's no surprise that they've been able to find a couple good ones on the recruiting trail and will likely to continue to be a destination place for tight ends.
They're happy to continue to turn over every last rock, stone, pebble, grain of sand to find whatever players they can, especially Cup was a guy who was out his sophomore year of high school, had shoulder injury and ankle injury, small high
The ruling
school.
on the field is an incomplete pass, 4th down.
So 36 seconds left before halftime. It'll be 4th and 5.
A tough situation right there for the White offense. I mean, you're backed up. You want to go 2-minute because you want the reps, but in a game situation, you probably wouldn't. One thing they did, they got a couple first downs. They made their punter better. So that's an encouraging drive. It's a positive drive, even if it didn't result in points.
Braden Mann's hunting for the MVP of this game. Some really impressive punts. Another 59-yarder.
When you look at this recruiting class, I mean, this is the foundation of where the program's going to be. And A&M, they're always going to be able to recruit Houston. They're going to be able to get guys in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex where there's great football. And get into San Antonio some as well. But now, for the first time, and as long as I can remember, A&M has a presence on the West Coast. They've gotten into Phoenix in the last 5 or 6 years because this is the westernmost spot in the Southeastern Conference. And kids from California now, they're thinking, you know, I want to play Southeastern Conference football. Where's the closest place to me? That would be Texas A&M. So they have a presence on the West Coast and will probably likely to continue to recruit nationally, just given the way the brand has really grown.
And the answer really is, as long as you win, folks will travel anywhere to be a part of that type of a program. They went to the Northeast this year. Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, got a linebacker, Andre White.
Offside on the defense, number 52. That penalty is declined. The result of the play, 1st down.
Okay, throw a little
First
emphasis
down.
on it. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Boom.
little sizzle.
Well done. Obviously, the backbone of this team is always going to be from Texas. Texas high school football is as strong and as passionate as you'll possibly find. I'm a proud alum of a Texas high school as well and played my ball here, so I'm particularly fond of this state and the quality of the high school player. But the problem is in high school football here, you're so well coached. The coaches in this state are so incredibly good. A lot of guys reach their potential too soon, and they level out in high school. I think Texas A&M has fallen victim to that at times. I know the Texas Longhorns have really struggled with that in the last decade, where they've recruited guys that were finished products and they never got better when they got on campus. So it's really important to not just recruit the state well, but recruit the right guys in the state so that they still have a really high ceiling that you can develop while they're on campus.
Offense.
See, that's an interesting proposition that you raised there, because is that, in a way, an indictment of coaching staffs that recruit players?
13 seconds, please.
No, because
and don't make them any better.
No, but that's not an indictment, because if a guy everyone has their potential. And some guys reach their potential in high school because high school football here is king. And high school coaches here are incredible, and they have full off-season programs. So oftentimes you will find some finished products at the high school level here, especially in some of the schools that are in Dallas-Fort Worth area more than anything else. So you'll find finished products, guys that can't grow anymore. It's not an indictment on the coach. It's just you have to be able to identify the players that are just starting to scratch the surface of what they're eventually going to become 3 or 4 years from now. That's what they always say. Yeah, you can evaluate my recruiting class today, but really I want you to evaluate it 3 or 4 years from now. And that's one thing that I think Jimbo has done the right job of doing. That recruiting class, yes, highly regarded, but they also feel like they have some guys that have big-time potential that are just beginning to scratch the surface of the player they're eventually going to become.
You've got to find the bananas that are still slightly green rather than the ones that are ready to be made into banana bread.
100%. And that's hard. And that's a testament to how good the high school coaching and the high school quality is in this state. I mean, guys max out at a lot of places because these high school coaches are so incredibly good in this state.
One more snap, first half. A trio of defenders waiting back at the goal line as this sails wayward out of bounds, and the first half comes to a close.
Check on some stats.
Well, a really good look at this squad, and the White up 17-7 at the break. Coming up on our halftime report with Dari Noka, Nick Saban on his new coaches, Kelly Bryant, why he transferred, Auburn and Tennessee in action this weekend as well. Yeah, I'm halfway home with the Texas A&M spring game, maroon and white. The White squad up by 10 at the break. As we take a look at the halftime Legends game of legends from A&M years past, entertaining the crowd here at the half in College Station at Kyle Field. Well, it is a little windy. You got to vary up the attire. Look around the SEC from a year ago, and you know the familiar names at the top of their respective divisions: Georgia, Alabama, great programs. Who are the teams that are ascendant right now on the heels of those squads?
Well, Alabama and Georgia are clearly still the teams to beat in their respective divisions. But as you look at LSU and as you look at Texas A&M in the West, it feels like they're coming a little bit. Auburn, too. Not enough people really talking about Auburn as it heads into the 2019 season. However, I mean, A&M, it feels like it's only a matter of time before they eventually catch up to Alabama when it comes to the quality on the football field. And then really on the East, Florida's coming. I mean, Dan Mullen last year did a great job in year one, really made Felipe Franks into a capable quarterback at the end of the season. And if he continues to recruit at a higher level, and if he continues to develop talent the way he did at Mississippi State, then Florida will be nipping at the heels of Georgia very, very soon in the East.
Mike Cousins, Greg McElroy, someone let us know if you find Cole Kubelik. We're not really sure. He's wandering around somewhere right now.
He's talking to the O-line down on the side. Yeah,
that's right.
He's rolling around.
Investigative journalism with a capital J. I don't want to make this too simplistic, but how important is quarterback continuity for the programs you just talked about?
It's big, and when you have a quarterback, you know what his strengths, you know what his weaknesses might be, but you also have a guy that will naturally lead just by the position that he plays. He's naturally going to be the leader. He's more than likely going to be the alpha when it comes to who the guys look at. When things are going haywire, I'm looking at Kellen Mond. I'm looking at Tua Tagovailoa. I'm looking at Jake Fromm. And each one of those guys has had enough success at this level to warrant the respect of everyone else on the entire team. So having a quarterback back is huge because you know who that voice is on the offensive side of the football, and that voice can be very important in times when the team is trying to find themselves.
Kellen Mond will be one of three returning 3,000-yard passers from a year ago coming back in this league. The challenge going into year number 2 for Jimbo Fisher and company was to fill all the gaps around him and bring in even better players. Because as we talked with the staff earlier today, they said, well, since we've been here, it's been 1 year, and now all of some really good players left, and the new replacements have not yet come in. Only 8 members of the recruiting class on campus, not all of them active today in the spring game, and 17 more to file in over the summer.
Well, Christmas comes in June, so that's the beauty, is yes, the team we're seeing tonight has actually been very impressive in a lot of ways, but that group is only going to be more competitive more than likely because these freshmen come in, they're going to push the veteran guys, and then in some cases they'll probably supersede the veteran guys because of the talent that'll be on display. You see the top recruits. I mean, number 1 offensive tackle Kenyon Green, likely going to probably find a place or a home early in his career, whether it's a tackle or inside. You look at the secondary, a position that was so inconsistent in 2018. They went and got 4 guys, one of which coming from the JUCO ranks, so he's experienced at the college level and knows what to expect when he arrives. So, yes, this was an important class to leave their mark, but also we're not going to evaluate this class this year. It's going to be 2 or 3 years from now. Where this class eventually goes is going to be huge for the development and where A&M eventually wants to be.
The Crimson Tide, a new record with 24 of their 27 players coming from within the ESPN 300. And Jimbo Fisher said a difference from when he took over this program to now, and it's not a very long time, is that it's a national appeal to go throughout the country. They're recruiting out west. They're recruiting to the northeast, to Pennsylvania. They've got a native Ontarian on their roster going to Canada and finding players from all over the country because it's only becoming more and more competitive to recruit in the deep south and the southeast.
No doubt, but it doesn't mean that you have to completely abandon your roots, though. The bread and butter for Texas A&M on the recruiting trail is going to be Houston, it's going to be Dallas, it's going to be San Antonio. That is where they have to absolutely lock down the players that they covet from those 3 areas and continue to get that pipeline established to some of those schools in each one of those 3 spots. So they'll go national, they'll go to the Midwest, they'll go to the West Coast. They have a little bit of an advantage over the rest of the SEC because they're the westernmost school, so they can go to the West and attract kids from Arizona and from California. So they'll continue to do that, but doesn't mean they need to completely abandon the state of Texas, because the state of Texas, as we've always talked about, is one of the best when it comes to high school quality and the amount of players that you have to pick from.
They're looking forward to the remainder of the class getting on campus and trying to build on a 9-win season. They enter 2019 on a 4-game winning streak. Some really exciting finishes, exceptionally long games as well for the Aggies last year. We'll review 2018. A meeting of defensive and offensive minds for Texas A&M. 17-7, the White Squad with the lead at the half here in the Maroon and White game 2019. The start of another spring college football weekend here on the SEC Network. At the break, Mike Cousins and Greg McElroy, Cole Kubelik along as well as we take a look back at last year, number 1 in the Jimbo Fisher era in College Station. A 9-4 record, 5-3 in the SEC, and this was one of the more exciting games of the year.
Yeah, no one played Clemson better than Texas A&M last year outside of Syracuse, but that was partially because of a quarterback situation with Trevor Lawrence going sideways. The 7 overtime game showed how far this program has come. They're tougher, they learned how to finish, and they used some of that momentum created with the win over LSU in that bowl game where they absolutely dominated what was a pretty good NC State football team. So I'm very, very excited, I think, much like everybody else, to see what this Aggie team is going to have in store for us this season.
And challenges await throughout the schedule, whether they're early going on the road to Clemson, finishing with back-to-back road games against Georgia and LSU, mix in Alabama right in the middle, but they do have a nice chunk of home games there from September into October.
And that can create some momentum. Naturally, the Arkansas game is one that they absolutely have to win, because if you look and they start the season 3-1, 4-1 potentially if you beat Arkansas, and if you take care of Auburn at home, maybe lose at Clemson. I don't think anyone's going to be too beside themselves with that type of outcome. But then 4-1 with momentum heading into that Alabama game is huge. And of course here at Kyle Field, difficult place to play. I know Alabama will probably have that game circled, knowing that's one of the toughest they have on their regular season schedule. But the second half of the season, you can recreate some of that momentum with 3 teams that are likely to be rebuilding before you finish up with really tough matchups at Georgia and at LSU.
A 3-1 start, you'd have at least 102,000 on hand here to watch that game. We're all overjoyed for the start of the second half on the other side.
College football is more than a game. It's the bands, the cheerleaders, the announcers.
It's uniquely American.
That passion separates college football from every other sport in the United States.
We got 30 minutes to go for the rest of our lives! Let's pour it on him and don't let him up. There goes Davis. He's all the way home.
The team.
A really exciting new venture from ESPN to take a look back at the origins, the history, and some of the great deep stories from college football. You go back to 30 for 30, you know that the storytelling is always going to be phenomenal. What do you look forward to most in maybe learning something new about college football?
Yeah, it's going to be incredible. I mean, just the people that are behind the 150 project is going to be truly remarkable. I love college football, but my familiarity with college football started in 2006 when I was getting recruited. That was when I was a pro guy. I was a Dallas Cowboy fan. So I'm really interested in hearing about and learning more about some of those great Nebraska teams in the 90s and the Miami team of the late 80s, early 90s, and some of the great stories and traditions, because this is probably the most traditional sport that we have in this country. And a lot of the things that make me proud to be an American will be on display as a result of college football and some of the patriotic things that we'll be able to witness. So I think learning more about the game that we love so much is going to be really special for each of us college football fans that will be tuning in.
How those traditions got started and why they've continued, and then just some of the stories behind the faces and names that we know. It's going to be so cool to see.
It really is. Just really, really special.
It'll be running clock for the second half. A 10-point lead for the white squad over maroon as we get ready to go. Mike Cousins, Greg McElroy, and Cole Kubelik as you're watching spring college football here on the SEC Network. Cole, I'm eager to know how your experience was learning about the history of college football. You played at Auburn, but I imagine you didn't maybe grow up as much as a pro fan as Greg did?
No, I grew up a college football fan. My goal, my dream was to play college football. Both of my parents attended South Carolina. My aunt went to Clemson University. She's in their Hall of Fame as a basketball player. And my uncle attended South Carolina, played golf there. And obviously, we moved to Alabama when I was young and didn't really have a side. I didn't grow up an Auburn or an Alabama fan, but obviously I knew the rivalry because every other kid that I was in school with had a side. And they would argue and debate it and talk about it 365 days a year. So it's something that I obviously know very well. It's something that Greg and I will always be a part of and have a piece of history in, but not something that I grew up with. I grew up just admiring Miami teams and Notre Dame teams and Nebraska teams because whoever was good, you kind of fell in love with them and liked them for a certain amount of time.
Here's Kellen Mond to start the second half, 10 for 14 in the first half as he looked pretty sharp. I had an interesting experience as well growing up outside of New York City, which you've got almost 10 pro sports teams to choose from.
Yeah, that's college football mecca. Is New York City.
Once Rutgers got there, it was. Right. And so you have all those pro sports teams. You don't follow it as much, but then getting to college is really, like you said, when you started to get recruited, becomes the introduction.
That's as soon as you see it for the first time and you experience it, you're no going back. College football's the best. It is the best. There's nothing better than going to a college football game on a Saturday, being on campus, and just experiencing the pageantry that is the game and the experience surrounding it.
Contested toss down the sideline for Osbin. 375 yards receiving last year, but was out about a month with an injury.
Hopefully he's okay. Got a little banged up earlier. Was favoring his wrist in the first half. So hopefully nothing too serious here. Just landed a little awkwardly. Pretty well thrown ball on the back shoulder, by the way. Kellen Mond, so picking up on the hot start.
Just
not
not
the
a
early
place,
interception.
Just not a place they can lose bodies at this point in time. Damian Craig told me Jamon Osmond's had a nice spring, so they're planning on playing him inside a little bit more this year. Show some of his versatility.
But there's a lot of guys we're not seeing tonight, whether it's Courtney Davis, Kendrick Rogers, two guys at the top of the spring depth chart at least. Hezekiah Jones, Rashad Paul, Caleb Chapman also out among that group.
And I'm not worried about wide receivers. You can find guys. Now, are they going to be game changers? You certainly hope so. And that's what they're trying to figure out. All right, who is going to be that guy that's going to elevate and make a play when it has to be made? And it appeared at times it was on the verge of becoming Kendrick Rogers. There's got to be a little more consistent. I wish we could see those performances like he had against Clemson, like he had against LSU. I wish we saw that every week because he has it in him. It's just a matter of bringing that out to the forefront. So he's the guy that I think most Aggie fans have circled and have kind of put an onus on and thinking that he's going to be the next great one that can truly take over a game.
Well, weird snap there. Prince scoops it up and takes it just about a yard shy of the first down marker as it was bobbled between he and Kellen Mond.
I'm telling you, man, I know that Travion Williams will not be an easy replacement. But I look at these running backs that they have, and Jayshawn Corbin's not going to be available tonight, but you look at Prince, I mean, he's shifty. And he makes guys look a little silly when he gets on the perimeter. This is a guy to keep an eye on. He'll have a role in the fall. It's just a matter of how big that role is going to be.
Cole, it was the second kind of funky snap we've seen from Luke Matthews, who Coach Fisher told you earlier had only moved over to play center about midway through the spring. He's one of 4 guys they've rotated through there, but he comes from a great lineage and is somebody they hope to work into that spot as they look to fill a big vacancy.
Yeah, maybe the best football lineage in the history of mankind when you see that Matthews name. But it's a difficult transition. He's done it for about a week, so he's got 3 or 4 practices under his belt. When you get into this situation, it changes a little bit. Ball placement, probably want to move the ball back a little bit if your snaps are sailing on you some. Maybe change your grip. Look at how hard you're gripping the football. Try to lighten up a little bit. Those things come with reps. I mean, Greg will tell you as a quarterback, you go through center quarterback exchange the first thing every day. Not in practice, before practice. That's just something that you know you have to come out and do. When I walked onto the field today, the first group out, centers and quarterbacks. They go through gun, they go underneath. That's something that you have to have down, and you'll get it with reps.
Yeah, the Matthews
Legal
family.
formation on the offense. Number 86 was covered up and went down on a pass. That's a 5-yard penalty. First down.
The Matthews family, even if they haven't donated $1, they've been probably the best donors to Texas A&M of late with the talented players that have arrived here and have donned the maroon and white. But, Cole, I look at this offensive line, man, and I know that, look, the era of college football, the value of the offensive line is still extremely important, but it's hard to find a good group that goes 5 wide across without any liabilities. How did you assess this group based on the pieces that are coming back? How would you assess this group compared to some of the others in the Southeastern Conference?
I think they've got some holes to fill, and I think new offensive line coach Josh Hessen has his hands full, and he's a guy that has been with Jimbo Fisher before they were together at LSU. Dan Moore's a guy that's played a lot of football here. I like him a lot. I think Jared Hawker is somebody that's going to give you a little bit of power. He's sort of the mean guy. He's sort of the
And he
the
plays
enforcer.
what position, just so people can pay attention to him?
Well, yeah, and
he plays the guard, left guard.
Yeah, that's a spot where I think the interior of this group is going to have to really step up, because the guy that you're losing in Eric McCoy has been the best, the most consistent, the most physical piece of your offensive line for the past 3 years. No doubt, no questions asked.
When Aggie fans turn on the tape of other programs,
That's really intense. They're sitting down watching tape Tuesday afternoon.
This is the SEC. I mean, come on. Of course they're watching tape. But when they watch other programs, who are the offensive lines in this league that you think they should strive to look like?
Alabama and Georgia.
Those are the 2.
They're the only 2 that I can give you right now. I think Mississippi State was close last year. I think they have a chance to get close again this year, but they lose Elton Jenkins inside, and he's going to be an NFL player for a long time. I don't know if there's a lot of other groups that I'm extremely confident in. Auburn brings all their kids back, but they didn't play great ball last year. They got a little bit better towards the end of the season, but I'm not going to tell you that's the standard of offensive line play in the league.
Mond unleashes, nearly has the completion between the hash marks deep downfield for Buckley, who he hit for a first quarter touchdown.
The reason why I asked Cole that final question, and just slightly out of the reach of Buckley on the deep post. Nice protection, by the way, up front. The reason why I asked, for those Aggie fans that are concerned about their offensive line, 1, I understand. It's a reasonable concern. 2, you're just like everybody else. Don't worry. Everyone's offensive line right now in college football, I'd say 50% of the offensive lines in college football are a liability. Right now, Texas A&M, I'm not sure that they are. I don't know if they're a position of strength, but they are certainly not a liability compared to most. As you kind of look around the landscape, everyone's struggling up front, and there's no reason for them to be concerned.
And here's the better news, Greg. We might be moving on the best interior defensive line class this league has ever seen. At least the majority of it's going to be gone.
Yeah. So the competition won't be that bad for
absolutely. It's not even going to be close. And a couple of those guys leaving this team, but Alabama is losing a generational talent inside. Mississippi State's losing a generational talent inside. LSU's losing a couple guys inside. Florida's losing some guys inside. Almost every team in the league had a dude on the interior of their defensive line last year. A lot of them are going to be gone. Defensive lines will not be what they were a year ago in the SEC.
Montez Sweat may have had the largest hand I've ever shaken. Couldn't have been a nicer guy, but he absolutely could have crushed my hand.
He's a big dude, no doubt. Defensive end for Mississippi State. But the good news is, too, for this Texas A&M offensive line is that they're going against a really good group every day in practice. And what Bobby Brown and Tyree Johnson and Michael Clemens and Matabike, what those guys throw at this offensive line on a daily basis isn't going to be any worse than what they get every Saturday when they strap it up. So they are facing serious competition every day in practice. That'll help with their development and cohesiveness.
So as a lot of the conversation centered around the changes on the offensive line, Jimbo Fisher pointed back to last year and said, well, I think we did all right. 472 yards a game, ranked 15th total in the country. Are the concerns about that overblown, or is he trying to say, well, let's slow things down and see how it shapes up in August?
I think that he understands that he's going to have to do a good job coaching in order to bring those guys along at a decent pace, but basically, trust me, I got this. That's what I take from him saying that. And I don't know if you have a different read on it, Cole. Like, trust me, I got this. He had a brutal offensive line in Florida State, won a lot of games. So I wouldn't worry too much about that group and how Jimbo Fisher calls offense, because he's not going to put them in a position to show the weakness that they might have. We don't even know if they have it, but if they do have a weakness, he'll do his best to try to make sure that weakness is masked on a snap-by-snap basis.
He'll find ways to work around it, and let's keep in mind some of the things they had last year. Jay Sternberger at tight end. That's a nice little safety net for your quarterback. You also had a quarterback with mobility. That aids your offensive line when you can design quarterback runs to sort of take some of the heat off, and it gives you an extra blocker on certain plays. And you had a ultra-productive tailback that got you out of a lot of jams. So if they have some of those things this year, it won't be as big of a concern, Mike.
I can tell you this much. They'll be tough. You know, they might not be uber talented. They might not have first-rounders across the board like they had 6-7 years ago. But they'll be tough, man. There's no denying that. With the way they practice and just how physical those practices are, there's no denying that group up front, they will be able to hold up.
Here's the thing. They don't need to be 95 Nebraska for this team to be good. They don't. They need to be solid. They need a solid offensive line with what they have at receiver, what they have at quarterback, and potentially what they have at tailback and tight end. They have enough to have a really, really good offense if that group just does a little bit more than hold up. They need a solid offensive line. They don't have to have a generational or all-time great offensive line to have a very good offense in College Station this year.
Knowing that every team is different, every year's group is unique, do you care for comparisons of what previous quarterbacks have done from year 1 to year 2 under Jimbo?
No, because every guy's different. And some guys make a huge leap from year 1 to year 2. Some guys are steady. Some guys regress. I mean,
every situation is different. Look at Jarrett Stidham the last 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great example. Jarrett Stidham goes at Baylor to being a superstar to a guy that really struggled most of the year last year at Auburn. So I look at every quarterback's situation a little differently. When I evaluate Kellen Mond, I think he's got a few different things. One, he's tough. And that's a huge aspect of being successful at quarterback. He's tough. 2, he's accurate. Somewhat streaky, but accurate. 3, he has a good understanding of what Jimbo Fisher wants him to do within the offense. Doesn't try to do too much. Is very stable and elevated display when he had to. And 4, his mobility makes him dangerous. So those are the 4 things that I really like about Kellen Mond right now. Now, where I'd like to see him improve? Completion percentage.
57% last year.
Take what the defense gives you. Not every play needs to be a home run. Not every play needs to be a 50-yard gain. Of course, explosive plays are going to happen. But if you've got a running back standing right over the ball because your deep route's covered, take it. No problem. Dump it off. Live to play second down. We'll call that big play again. Those are the areas in which I think he can grow. Managing the game, understanding situations, and having a better feel within the pocket of knowing when that internal clock is going off, when I got to lose it, throw it away, or I got to find a check down as quick as possible because I might get sacked.
The 57% completion percentage and the 9 interceptions were both bottom 3 in the league a year ago. Nevertheless, as Jimbo Fisher said, I don't really care for completion percentage. You make the smart throws, you make the right ones, hit them when you need to. As Colton Taylor does, he gets his first action of the day, sending that ball to the perimeter. The junior out of Houston with a completion to Dylan Taylor.
And completion percentage doesn't tell the whole story. I mean, like you can have a 60% completion and average 12 yards an attempt because every throw you make, you're driving it way downfield. Your completion percentage can be lower, but your yards per attempt and your efficiency is very, very high. So I don't put a ton of stock on completion percentage, but given the way that they call offense and the way they try to generate completions, the completion percentage should be higher than 57, no matter what. And
I agree with you on both, and I think it's as regressive as saying that the most important numbers in baseball are home runs, RBI, and batting average, because there's so much more and so many different ways, so many better ways we can evaluate a player.
Yeah, that's great. Batting average, Bryce Harper bats .250, but he hits 40 bombs a year. So I don't really care about that .250 average. He's below .270, which is league average. He just made $330 million for a reason. I mean, so I don't mind completion percentage. What I want to see, though, is when there are open receivers, throw it. Like, I feel like he sometimes doesn't always get to an open receiver because he's so fixated on what's happening down the field, and that's just part of becoming more comfortable within the offense.
For me, it's all about protecting the football. If Kellen Mond takes another step, if he progresses a little bit more as far as protecting the football this year, he's going to have a special season.
He had a couple fumbles last year that Coach Fisher mentioned because when he started to run, what he does well in the pocket was keep the ball high, but when he started to run, the ball came low, and that's where it got poked out.
And that happens. I mean, that's just development. I mean, he's going to get better and stronger, and those fumbles will happen less and less. But think about it, as your arms are moving, that ball gets out away from your body, that's where you lose it. But I think he can be better in that regard. I mean, turnovers are absolutely a killer. But for the most part, there's nothing I saw with him and thought, man, he's a turnover waiting to happen, where I saw that with a lot of guys. So I'm not too overwhelmed. I mean, 9 picks last year is never ideal, but if he can limit that by 6 or 7, I mean, he threw 9 picks on a lot of attempts. So I'm not too bothered by his turnover percentages, but every quarterback can stand to improve in that regard.
Hey, Greg, you busy tomorrow?
Yes.
Oh, well, you should set your DVR then, because at 4 Eastern, 3 Central, we have more spring football. Yeah, it's Auburn's
That's what I'm busy doing.
That's right.
Absolutely. I'm dialed in.
I should have asked the next question. A-Day at Jordan-Hare, and the day ends with Tennessee's annual orange and white game, which comes your way from Knoxville. Both games also streaming live on the ESPN app. I don't have to ask Cole. I already know he's dedicated to the cause.
Cole's in. There's no doubt.
100%. Give me all the spring games.
Cole
Every
has
single one of them.
Cole has a seatbelt on his couch. I mean, he doesn't even want to get off the couch.
All right, we're going to try to get Jimbo here in a minute, guys. Go a little pistol formation there?
Yeah, we got a little pistol, move it around. So then you don't get the reads off the split backs. You can do everything in the eye pistols you can in split backs.
All right, take us through what you're seeing here. Young quarterback in.
We got a young quarterback. He does a good job. They'll run base stuff. He'll probably inside zone. Probably, let me see. Might go back to inside zone again. Nope, he went seal. Oh, down, kick out. Good tackle by the safety right there. Not got by Leon.
It's a good feel by the safety.
It is real good feel. Got to get a guy in that alley. That was a good play.
You mentioned probably keeping it simple. Greg mentioned earlier, this has kind of been like a real game. These defenses are teeing off.
Oh.
Safety blitz, corner blitz.
Oh, yeah, we don't let them bring it. We've been bringing it the whole time, and I want those guys to see it. And you know, because that's the football today. On defense, when it gets spread out, you got to bring the blitzes, you got to bring the interior twist, and we do it for our linemen to make them try to make those gang calls and over them and see those blitzes coming. If you can check out, you check out. But you know that they hit them late. You got to see it up front and then compensate for it.
What's your assessment been of your quarterbacks so far today overall?
I've been very pleased with Kellen. The first throw he underthrew. He didn't get his hip flipped over, but other than that, he's managed the ball real good. We had a bad formation over there that cost us, but I thought he managed the ball really well, made great decisions, been accurate. I thought that deep ball I thought was right on the money.
Yeah.
I looked at it, had a chance on that. I really like Ten has done a great job as a young freshman, come in and made some plays, made a great throw. You can see his talent. He's still figuring out what's going on because it's all new to him, but really like what he did. James has done a really nice job. He took us on a drive down and missed it, got a little panicky as you saw on a touchdown throw, but took us on a field goal drive. And, you know, Blumrick, you know, he moved it. And Blumrick's really a runner. He does such a good job. When you're not tackling him, it hurts his game a little bit, but solid. And I've really been pleased with Kellen now.
Can I just tell you how much I love seeing that I formation with a tight end next to the tackle?
You know what the officials say? Is anything different? You know what I say for every game? Yeah, the eye.
Because you don't see it. That's what you don't see it.
But that's what, when teams become the spread early, that was the anomaly. You never got to work against it. Now, when you go back and be physical, these guys don't line up against that stuff and how you fit runs. And you're not going to be in it all the time, but you can steal runs and formations. And what's a better way to create a one-on-one outside and a run-pass option than getting a pro formation?
Now, you told us that during practice, until your last scrimmage, when you got one of your starting offensive linemen back, that the D-line had pretty much dominated.
Yep.
your one offensive line's held up really nicely tonight. I haven't seen a lot of the first group of defensive linemen making a bunch of plays.
They have it inside. Now there's three of our starters on one team and 2 on the other, but we've ran the ball interiorly very good, picked up some twist games and the blitzes a couple times. And like I say, the young backs, 23, Cabote's a guy who's really emerging. You see Prince is a young freshman with talent. So we're going to run the football, and I've been pleased with the way they run the ball.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Fourth quarter coming up.
Biggest names in the draft for 3 nights only. Dropping the greatest hits live from Nashville. The NFL Draft begins April 25th on ESPN and ABC.
Or as they say during hockey season, Smashville. But it's a good time either way, and some of the Aggies who expect to hear their names called come draft day or draft weekend. Start the fourth quarter. Mike Cousins, Greg McElroy, Cole Kublik. A lot of contact there at the 20-yard line, and you got a flag coming in at the end of the play after that long throw from Jagger LaRoe.
I love the deep throw, a little underthrown. A lot of contact. Very obvious pass interference.
On the defense, number 39, 15-yard penalty. And as my friend Red Cashin would say, first down.
This is the most swag from an official, I think, that I've ever heard during a game. There should be more cultural references.
I need him to say, giving him the business here in a little bit, too. Like, I need all the official swag.
I like that. Break out what you got for the spring game.
Everything. Throw the kitchen sink at him.
As we head in the third, a running clock here, fourth quarter. Incomplete on first down after the penalty.
Usually at this point, you get a little reflective throughout the spring game. And I'll tell you what, Cole, watching these guys, I'm impressed. I really am. The defense looks solid. Still going to have some new faces on the defensive side, especially in the secondary and at linebacker, that are likely to look a little different. And I know that the offense is limited with the amount of personnel they have at wide receiver, but I'll tell you what, they've done a good job up front. That was what I really wanted to pay attention to, and I feel like the quarterbacks have looked in rhythm. This is all in all been a pretty impressive spring game so far for the Aggies.
Hasn't been sloppy. You've gotten good execution.
Right.
You've seen some guys, what Jimbo Fisher said they wanted to emphasize, short yardage, breaking tackles, making catches in traffic. Some of the things that he knows they've been focusing on, you've seen that begin to sort of show up here in this spring game. I think some of the quarterbacks have looked good, impressed with the running backs, and you mentioned it. There are a lot of guys that are going to be relied upon to make plays on both sides of the ball that aren't in this game.
Right.
Therefore, you can be happy with what you see here, and then you're going to add some, and then you're going to add even more when that group of freshmen get here in the summer and the fall.
This is a young team. I mean, they
have 8 seniors on this team?
Yeah, 6 that really
seniors.
play.
6 seniors on the whole team.
I mean, it's a young team that is poised to do really big things. And look, the schedule's brutal this year, and maybe this won't be the year that they really break through, but it's inevitable. With the way they've recruited and the personnel that's set to arrive here in just a few weeks, and the foundation that's been laid.
Here's the thing about it, though,
very
Greg.
encouraging.
Here's the thing, and this is the way that Jimbo will sell it to these guys. And Jimbo was my offensive coordinator when I was in Auburn. I've been around him. I know his mantra. I know how he is. Everybody like us and every fan that sees that schedule is going to talk about what an impossible task it is. Jimbo Fisher will sell that as opportunity.
Right.
As gigantic stages to go make a name for yourself, to go prove yourself as a player or as a team. And when you do that, you'll get every bit of attention, every bit of a ranking, and every bit of opportunity that you've ever wanted in the world of college football. That's what he'll sell it as. And I think that's what he did in the Clemson game last year. And coming up a little bit short hurt them a little bit later. You guys went through that schedule last year. I thought the only 2 true disappointments were Mississippi State and Auburn. They had that Auburn game.
Yeah.
Had it. And they can't be mad about the Alabama game. Clemson game was close. Nobody anticipated that. Had the Auburn game, and then a couple of gigantic plays that Mississippi State made on them late. That was a little bit disheartening. But other than that, this team took care of business and was competitive every single week. They can take a big step this fall.
Tipped and incomplete on second down. Going back to last year's schedule, I think the 7 overtime game became one of those moments of the football season that you would say, I remember where I was when.
Right.
Where were you?
I was in Fleming's in Birmingham.
Shout out.
Well,
that's a good brag.
I had just gotten back. I had just gotten back from a game and went straight there. And Zarzer, we do the radio together, and I've always watched his games. And sure enough, he just happened to be on this one. And it was the wee hours of the morning when I'm watching. I'm just trying to keep my eyes open, man. That was amazing. It was just amazing to watch that game. And to see, too, knowing that this team had struggled in November to finish, to see just how quickly that wasn't the case anymore, to beat LSU for the first time since they've been in the SEC, that was a monumental opportunity for them that they didn't let slip away. I mean, it was, and they kept fighting, and they got a little fortuitous with some things that happened throughout, and they took advantage of the opportunities that were given to them. That was a huge building block game for this program and where they eventually want to be.
I was in Athens, Georgia. We had Georgia Tech that day.
Oh, yeah.
And I stuck around because it was such a good day of football. I didn't want to be in the car during all those games and could hardly keep my eyes open, but also couldn't believe what I was seeing.
It was amazing.
Going for it here on 4th down. A bounce to the edge and a solid tackle as Kubota goes down, and he's short of the first down marker. He's had a pretty big day, 45 yards receiving, and they continue to hand it to him on the ground as well, as the redshirt sophomore running back's gone over 100.
I mean, just you think about all the different things that happened in order for this to go down. His knee being down to whistle the game, the play stopped, which was just crazy in and of itself, because that would have ended it. Essentially, the incredible catches by not just Courtney Davis there, but what Kendrick Rogers was able to do as well. The plays on defense, I mean, it was crazy. It was the craziest game I've ever seen.
I was in San Diego. We're getting ready to go on the air for San Diego State and Hawaii. So you're talking, it's late night, right? We're one of the last games of the night.
Right.
And we've got to, believe it or not, we do rehearse sometimes before we go on the air. It may not appear that way, but we do. And we kept begging to push it back as we had the iPad going.
Oh, of course.
With the game going deeper and deeper into overtime.
It was crazy, man. I mean, and like I said, I know it just counts as one win, but that was just such a break. It was so gutsy and fortuitous. Like, it took such advantage. It was just really fun to watch, and that's one of those games that they'll always talk about here in Aggie land and remember fondly.
Mon back at quarterback, 2nd down and 9.
Another thing cool about that game, guys, was that it happened with that rivalry.
Yeah.
And that's what we need back in this league. We need that rivalry. I can remember there was a running back from my high school named Robert Davis. He went to LSU. And their opener was against Texas A&M, the Wrecking Crew defense, and he went for about 170 yards as a true freshman. But that was a big game. A&M LSU or LSU Texas A&M was a big game, and I think that can become one of the bigger rivalries in this league. And so for the nation to be dialed into it, for the nation to see it, I think was great for the league and great for that rivalry.
I can think of another rivalry I'd really like Texas A&M to play. Hopefully that gets scheduled here sooner than later.
In state, of course.
And it's not.
And when they see Georgia this year, that's a game you don't get very often on the schedule either.
Yeah, first time that they've played since A&M's been in the league. So going to have to take advantage of that one. If you're an Aggie fan, you've never been to Athens, highly recommend it. Go and enjoy that game because that'll be one heck of a scene. And you might not be back until like 2027. So take advantage. But it really is. It's really good, I think, to see A&M restoring that tradition with LSU, and hopefully, I know there have been some talks, hopefully A&M and Texas get on the schedule at some point here in the near future. I know both fan bases would love to see it, and I, for one, as a diehard fan of college football, I'd love to see it as well.
Something like that only seems like a positive for the sport.
Rivalries are what separate college football from everything else. Yankees, Red Sox play 18 times a year.
And every game's 7 hours long.
Right. Giants, Cowboys play twice a year, at least. You only get one shot at your rival, and you have to live with the circumstances of that game for 365 days. And in some cases, you live with it for the rest of your life. And everyone remembers what you did against your rival. And especially those rivals that are really, really passionate and in states that are crazy about football, like the state of Texas, it'd be a great one to have.
7.5 minutes to go. Running clock here, fourth quarter, and 3rd down and 5 for Mon in the offense. She's looked pretty sharp today. It's incomplete on 3rd down. What's next after today? Spring practice is over. Camp doesn't open for a while. What does the football player preparing for the season do in the coming months?
Well, by this point, you're just relieved for spring to be over, because winter workouts are a complete grind. They're brutal. And then you bang heads against each other for 15 practices. So by this point, you're pretty sick of the guy that you're lining up across from every single day. So you get away from football. That's what I always recommended. In May, when you're away and you're at home, get away from football. Work out, of course. Stay accountable, but get away from football and be ready come late May or early June to hit the ground running, because summer workouts in 110-degree heat are very, very real, and that's what these guys will be going through here in a couple weeks.
Busy day for Braden Mann. 13 punts today. Tomorrow, 11 Eastern, 10 Central, the SEC Now team will be back with highlights and analysis from all the baseball and softball games on the schedule. You can always watch as well on the ESPN app. It's suitable for casual or formal occasions and goes wherever you do. 17-7, White leading Maroon, and Zach Calzada takes the reins here with about 6.5 to go. Cam Brown, the freshman from Colleyville, Texas, getting the reception around the numbers.
Greg, Calzada just seems to have that calm demeanor in the pocket. Just doesn't panic, doesn't seem to rush anything. Just has a great feel for how to get into his throws and get the ball out.
It's amazing what that green jersey will do for your comfort level. But in seriousness, I think you're onto something. He does look comfortable. He looks in control. He's been accurate with the football, and his decision-making and his processing of information will only speed up as he continues to get more comfortable. But as far as checking the physical boxes, he certainly does it. And Jimbo Fisher wasn't wrong in saying that he certainly throws a great ball and can make plays when asked.
Darryl Dickey, the offensive coordinator, going into his second season, he said he feels like the quarterback competition is going to come down really to the fall, with all three guys behind Mon, Blumrick, Foster, Calzada in a pretty similar place. Here he's got single coverage, throws right into it, looking for Baylor Cupp, hustling down the sideline, and it's defended well.
Another good thing about that competition going on for a few more months is that the likelihood of all three of those guys being here on campus is exponentially higher. If you were to name a backup quarterback today, there's a real possibility that you might have two guys transferring tomorrow. So that competition lasting into the summer and into fall camp is going to benefit the roster and I think help each other. I think competition is huge. Iron sharpens iron, and these guys competing for reps and opportunities is something that will make each one of them better.
Offense, number 61, 5-yard penalty, second out. False start, 72 offense, 5-yard penalty, still second out.
Yes, I was waiting for some jazz on the call.
Well, this is what you get when you start mixing and matching offensive linemen. You get some of the younger guys in, you get a newer quarterback in, they haven't all worked together. The cadence is a little bit different, things are rushed. You want to get to your assignment, guys just get eager.
That last one on Colton Blanton, the redshirt freshman out of Cypress, Texas. Calzada across the body, out of bounds. It'll bring up 3rd down and 20. Greg, how do you evaluate behind Mon the way Blumrick, Foster, and Calzada have shaped up against one another?
Well, much like what Jimbo Fisher said, is it's not really fair to evaluate those guys all on the same playing field, because their games are all a little different. Now, I think all have had moments where they can be proud of the performances that they've had, but Blumrick and Foster are two guys that really use their legs as a big part of what they do, whereas Calzada is more of a thrower. So a thrower is naturally probably going to look a little more comfortable in a setting in which they can't be tackled. So it's not really fair to have a great evaluation of them, but I think all should be encouraged by some of the things they've been able to do. And that was a nice throw, too.
It was a really nice throw there to Cup. He had to pick a spot right there, Greg, and put it right on the money.
Yeah, and a big body. This is what this does for you. I mean, Baylor Cup can just turn around, stop his body, and just his size and the momentum that he creates separation with the defender.
And he got tackled on that play by Andre White, one of the early enrollees. 8 freshmen on campus early, 4 on the offensive side, 1 a kicker, and 4 on defense as well. White and R.J. Aribo, 2 linebackers getting to the action early. White from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, showing just how far the reach of the Aggie Nation can go when it comes to recruiting.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to think they're up in Pennsylvania is pretty remarkable. But that's a position that they still, I think, need to figure out. Secondary for sure, but linebacker, knowing that Tyrell Dodson left early, I'm not sure many people in this program expected that. That's going to be a pretty significant loss as they try to figure out what to do at the second level defensively.
Stop the clock.
Little hat cam there on the quarterback retreat.
Game clock operator, please reset to 2 minutes. Regular timing rules from here on.
Your game, your rules. So a 2-minute drill for Calzada.
Everybody except for Colin. I did not see the Colin. But I did tell Kellen.
He wants to go long first throw. Oh, what a grab along the sideline. It started with one hand for Moses Reynolds. He takes it away for the throw intended for Preston.
That's his second interception. This one, after the impressive one over the middle at the beginning of the second half, this one was really impressive. Slightly underthrown deep ball. He tracks it, extends that right arm, and reels it in. It's a really nice play by Moses Reynolds.
Playing like a receiver, receiver number. Moses commanding the ball into his hands. Now 1:52 as that 2-minute drill took just 8 seconds.
Well, what's funny about it is 3rd and long, and you're sitting there and you're trying to evaluate Calzada, and that'll go down as an interception. No, you never want interceptions, but kind of getting back to what Cole was talking about earlier, that's as good as a punt. That's an inside the 3. That's a great play. I mean, tip your cap to the defender, but that's not all negative. Even though it's an interception and it'll look bad in the box score, it's not a bad play on 3rd and long in a situation where you got to have it. I'm just trying to have the quarterbacks back. Does that sound
per usual?
You buying that?
I feel that.
In all seriousness, though, Cole, is that not a good play? I mean, you take a shot downfield.
I appreciate the shot. I appreciate attempting to stretch the defense. Yeah, but in a 2-minute drill, I don't think you can leave the ball that short. That's not acceptable.
No, I don't disagree with that. I'm saying the outcome is not terrible. Not all bad. As you're coaching a freshman, he's probably a little down in the dumps that he underthrew the deep ball. Go love him up. Say, hey, man, it's a punt. You're good. That's the way you handle quarterbacks. We're sensitive.
Well, we've got threatening weather coming into the area tomorrow, but a pretty comfortable night. And I'm wondering, Cole, how you got away with eluding the business casual edict and wore a polo today.
Oh, that was what was mandated by sideline analysts and reporters. I just do what corporate tells me to do, Mike.
You're a sideline correspondent, though. You're doing all kinds of things down there. You're not an analyst. You're not a reporter. You got it all. You got the whole repertoire.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get on the Cole Kubelik train.
I like it.
Polos for everybody.
I tell you, it is windy down here. This
it's blowing.
Weather is definitely moving in, but it's affected some of the throws down here as well.
Yeah, and this is a good opportunity, too. Like we talked about at the end of the first half for Calzada, this is a great opportunity for James Foster now to operate in a 2-minute drill in a backed-up, got-to-have-it game-like situation.
And that ball's taken away. So both quarterbacks It's McCoy, the linebacker, with the interception. Give it away within the 2-minute window.
Yeah, he just doesn't see Keontae McCoy just drift out underneath that spot route. Got to always be able to look internally and see where those defenders are coming from. As your eyes go out, those defenders are coming with them. It's a good job by McCoy, though, reading the quarterback's eyes, drifting right into the spot and making the play.
And that interception was not as good as a punt, because it would have been a negative 7-yard punt had it been the case.
That is true. Just got to always see out in front of the wide receiver. It's tough for the young quarterback.
Calzada, no good options through the air. Takes it down inside the 5-yard line. The Buck, 5 to go.
Not very realistic as the clock continues to run. I don't know if they blew him, whistled down in bounds.
And Kubota goes through the middle for the touchdown. So over 100 yards on the ground for him. The score to complement about 50 receiving yards as well. And on a day where their top 3 running backs were unable to take the field, he and Prince have had good showings.
They have done a good job. And you're never going to rely just on one running back. Those days are essentially gone. Now, Travion Williams kind of bucked that trend a little bit with how productive he was, but finding a lot of depth at that position is paramount for everyone in college football. And based on what we've seen tonight, A&M can feel good about the guys that they have that are likely to back up Jashaun Corbin.
Played in just 6 games over the course of his career. One last year as he redshirted in year number 1 for Jimbo Fisher. 9 wins for them last year, their most since 2013. Kevin Sumlin's 2nd year in College Station. They got 47 seconds here. An opportune time perhaps, although maybe not in a spring game, to go for an onside kick. Tight ends also had a good day. Big spot to fill this year, but Baylor Cupp and Glenn Beal had nice evenings.
Yeah, and they're going to be a big part of this offense. I know that Baylor Cupp comes in with a lot of expectations, and it might take him a little while to develop into the player he's likely to become, but him and Beal, they complement each other nicely. Beal, a little bigger, inline guy that's a good run blocker and very effective when asked of him in the passing game, but the true matchup nightmare will be Baylor Cupp as he continues to get more and more comfortable playing the position. Remember, in high school, he went to a 2A school where they ran an offense that resembled that of the wing T. So he's very raw at this point. He's naturally gifted, but raw. So 4 months from now, we might see a completely different player as he works with the quarterbacks and wide receivers throughout 7-on-7s in the summer.
If you're a coach at a school of 400 kids and you got a player like that, do you consider changing up the offense for a year or two?
I put him at quarterback, man.
That's right.
Definitely add a few pass plays.
Jimbo Fisher wanting 2 minute, no surprise. Even with the lead, these reps are extremely valuable.
Come out on the field here, limited time situation. What are the first couple items mentally in your checklist?
Well, you got to be very mindful of the clock. How many timeouts do I have? First question I ask. How many timeouts? All right. So the white team has 2 timeouts remaining. What do we need? We need a field goal or we need a touchdown? In this particular case, it's a little tough to figure out considering they have the lead. But as I get into the offense, I just want to get the drive started. So right there you go with what is usually a very easy completion. Little screen, defensive ends, ears are pinned back. They're trying to rush the quarterback in an obvious passing situation. You try to slip a running back out into the flats. with a screen. But get the drive started, always the first thought when you take the field in a 2-minute situation.
Mon kind of struggles with those short, easy throws sometimes, Greg. Is he trying to push the ball? Is he trying to control it too much?
He's just got to understand how to adjust his arm and change the velocity. He's just such a thrower that he kind of throws the same speed almost all the time. I think he can find a little more nuance, a little more touch in some of those underneath throws to make it easier on his wide receivers. But that's all part of just getting a little older and getting more reps and getting more comfortable with the guys that you have on the receiving end.
Against a 4-man rush, he's got his throw swatted away toward the outside.
You think about what this means to Texas A&M and to Jimbo Fisher. You got 31 seconds left in the spring game. Everybody's had their reps. You got your starting quarterback out here. Dan Moore, your starting left tackle's out there. Jamon Osmond's in, your best healthy receiver. Tell me this doesn't mean a lot to Jimbo Fisher and this coaching staff.
No, they're evaluating all the time. And this is a crucial opportunity to get better. 2-minute drills win and lose games, man. And there's an opportunity in Kyle Field with people in the stands to get it done.
On the move, and it's incomplete down to 23 seconds. This is essentially the you don't leave the table until you finish your vegetables portion of the game.
No doubt. And you can see the wind is really starting to pick up. And they're actually, it looks on the field, Cole, is that the wind is really moving too. So that's hard on the quarterback and on the wide receivers.
It's weird because the flags on the goalposts are barely moving. The flags up at the top of the stadium are whipping, and it feels like aiming corner on the field down here. It goes, and then it completely dies, and then it picks back up.
There was no way we were making it a full 3 hours without a Masters reference. There's just no way. Thank you, Cole.
Well done, Cole.
I'm here for you.
That was a nice throw over the middle. That's a tight end right there, man. Here, you're 265. You got a full head of steam. I'm going to throw you into a blow-up, but I know you're going to make this catch. And that's a beautiful throw right on the numbers, right on the face mask, excuse me, to a trustworthy, big-bodied tight end who's not afraid to go over the middle for you. And Beal knows he's going to get hit. Doesn't matter. Boom. Nice job holding him up, walling off, and getting leverage against the defender. Good job by the tight end.
Here goes Mon, 5 options. Back to the big fella again. Well, we're going full timing rules here.
Final timeout.
They used the timeout. If his helmet came off, they didn't take the timeout, he'd have to come off the field. If we're playing official rules down to the end. Beal, 5 catches, 70 yards, and a touchdown. He played last year as a freshman in 6 games.
It's between the two tight ends, they have about 150 yards receiving. I think that's not an important part of this offense and who they're going to be. No question about it.
So like you said, going into that Alabama game, if they can get off to a good start, that could set up one of the premier matchups of the season. Here with more than 100,000 on hand to watch it. One of the largest venues in college football, and then a challenging road to finish against Georgia and LSU, the final 2 weeks of the season. That's viewed by many as one of the bigger challenges to being able to repeat or perhaps even improve on the 9-win season from a year ago in year number 2 under Jimbo Fisher.
Fully expect them to be a better team this year. Really, I think that they have that chance and that likelihood. As long as Kellen Mond continues to develop, they find a few more reliable playmakers on the perimeter. The offensive line shores up the way we anticipate. The defensive pieces, especially in the front four, seem as though they're going to be solid, so no issues there. Secondary should be better. They'll find some good pieces at linebacker at some point or another. This team should be better. Just a matter of whether or not it shows on the win-loss record.
Davis with a try from 55, and it's no good to bring us to the end of the maroon and white game. 17-14 final score. Final impressions from you guys.
Very impressed. I mean, solid performance. Still have some things you need to iron out, but Cole, all in all, I would say that was a very well-played, well-executed spring game against a team that is on an upward trajectory.
A couple mistakes a little bit late, but I thought all in all, it was a good game. Physical, you saw the ability of this team to run the football. First offensive line protected, so I thought it was solid.
So it's been fun. We dodged the weather and got more spring football before our triple header of games tomorrow on the SEC Network. Thanks for joining us on behalf of our entire crew. Cole Kublik on the field, Greg McElroy here in the booth. I'm Mike Cousins saying so long from College Station, Texas.